What's up?
Hello. Oh, we
It's
are here on a Thursday night.
it's been a
Made
minute,
it.
you know. We've done a few other things, and those
Mm-hmm.
some
Mm-hmm.
other things were like a few weeks in a row. So we're back.
Mm-hmm. We're
We're back.
back.
We're
The
back.
vengeance. This time it's personal.
Tell the YouTube people where we're at today.
So we're on a Discord server called Christ Center Christianity, and we are asking people's what political party do they associate with, and our goal is to kind of understand how people get to that conclusion, what kind of values and strategies they're trying to reach by choosing that, and why they think other people might choose something else.
Yeah, that's about right. About right. And we don't have a lot of people in the room today. I'm kind of surprised. I thought people would be all over this, but hopefully a few more people will roll in. So what we're doing, so we're having those types of conversations with people, bringing on people up on stage, having a little chat with them. And if you
Mm-hmm.
want to do that, you'll have to raise your hand. We'll bring you up on stage. You might have to click one more button, and then up on stage you go. Then we talk.
Yeah.
That's how that process works. So,
Mm-hmm.
in order for us to bring you up on stage, you do have to raise your hand. That way we know. Otherwise, I could just invite random people, and that could be interesting too.
Just put them on the spot. Tell us your beliefs, or else. So, Pierce, how did you, or which political party do you associate with?
um, well, as of recently, I would say it's the Democratic Party, but oh no, I'm not too attached, quite frankly. I don't think either party really represents me completely. So
Hmm.
yeah, but in November that's where my vote will be currently, unless I change my mind, which I guess I could.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't think either party really represents me entirely, but the Democratic Party represents me better than the other party, I think.
Hmm. And in what ways do you feel that?
So I think the biggest thing for me right now is I went on to Donald Trump's website and read through his plan, and there was a whole bunch of things on there. And the one thing that stuck out to me the most, which I was like, I don't think that's the strategy I want to have done. It was he wants to like eliminate the Department of Education, and
Hmm.
I'm not entirely sure what ramifications that would have, but I think they might be not good. I think that might be a strategy that makes education not good, makes it for the worse in the United States, and that's something that I
Hmm.
really want. I want education to be really good. I think if education is top notch, that typically results in lower crime. I like lower crime, so and I think
Well,
overall people are happier. But
what do you think would be the best case scenario? Like if if they got rid of it, what is the reasoning behind even suggesting getting rid of it?
I think the reasoning behind it is it's broken. I think that Trump and myself have different ideas of why it's broken. I have my idea of why it's broken. He probably has his idea of why it's broken. Probably not the same reason why, but I think the thought process, that's the name of the show, is that it's broken. So let's just get rid of it. And I mean that's a strategy, interesting strategy. Uh, my strategy would be, instead of just throwing it away, tossing it in the garbage, let's just fix it. Let's just make it the best it can be.
Hmm. So let's imagine we're talking to somebody who disagrees with you here. Do you think that they would stop at just getting rid of it? What do you think they would do? Like they would, I assume they'd still want some kind of education. How do you think they're? What do you think they're proposing there?
Run this by me one more time. I didn't grasp it.
Yeah, so I mean, if they get rid of it, and because it's broken,
hmm
they're not going to stop having education.
Right.
What do you think they're going to do in place of it then?
Right. The plan outlines it to be up to the states. So there would, I think, essentially there would be no federal funding for education. It would just be like states figure it out, deal with it. So that would probably, for some areas, that wouldn't be ideal for them, because like they might not have enough money to support a school without federal funding. Um, there might be
Should
some
we just,
issues there.
we'll just combine states again? You'll just have one Carolina, one Dakota, just one Maryland. No, mix Maryland and with some of those other spots. I don't know. All right, so education is a value for you. You said because you think it's a deterrent for things like crime and it's for better society, and you think that if the states had more control of the situation, you would have less. The education quality would go down in some states
Yeah,
because
yeah.
of
I
funding.
mean, well, funding would be one of the reasons why it could go down. I'm sure some states they could, or when I say state, but it's not really necessarily the whole state. It could be like the county, the city, whatever. But some
Mhm.
areas, yeah, funding could definitely be an issue. But it's not entirely about funding. Uh, the Department of Education does a lot more than just funding. They have, standardized tests, which disperse help determine where the funds are dispersed and stuff like that, right? But
Mm.
just having those standardized tests and have like an overall goal, I think that's like really important. Sure, states will probably can and will do things like that. They already have things like that,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's important to have that starting point.
Hmm. Hmm. Neat. Hmm. Well, just want to remind everybody here who's come in, we're doing a call-in show. We're trying to uh, understand how you've come to pick which political party you associate with, uh, to figure out what kind of strategies it meets, what kind of needs it meets for you, what your thought process is, all that. If you want to jump in, raise your hand here in the Discord, and we'll keep talking until then. Hmm.
And we can
There's a
discuss some.
Go ahead,
Mango wants to come up.
Mingo.
Hi.
Hey, Mango.
Hey,
Hey.
What's
Mingo.
up?
What's up? I guess I'd say maybe you guys have like more I don't know, knowledge you can fill me in on. I'm not like politics isn't my strong suit, but I've always kind of identified with Democrat, like personally. But honestly, if I had to explain both sides, I don't know that I could do that very well. So that's my ignorance, right?
Hmm.
You can correct me. I think
Yeah.
Republican is like less government in some ways.
Typically, I think that's the understanding.
I associate with Democrat. I think universal health care, abortion rights. What else?
Why don't we do this fun experiment? Why don't Why
Let's
don't you pick something that you feel? You said you have a little bit of trouble, maybe explaining the other side. Why don't we try to run through something like that? What's something that you feel um, that you value, and maybe we can try to figure out how to still man why people might think differently.
Okay. Remind me what steel man means, please.
Just give the best case scenario of what somebody might be thinking that has a different thought than you. Like maybe this seems to be the most honest take that you can think
Most
of.
generous interpretation. sort of
Yeah,
thing.
that's the great word for it. Yeah, mango. That's a great word.
Okay. This is not the most generous interpretation, but while I was like Googling, because I was trying to be like, what is the difference, right? I ran across this quote that is a little bit offensive potentially. It says Democrats work to help people who need help. Republicans work for people who don't need help. That's a little bit offensive, I think. I don't think that's the truth of the matter. Um But yeah, universal healthcare, abortion rights, LGBTQ rights.
Naming a good number of things. Go ahead, Pierce.
Have you ever seen that meme where it's like it lists or has pictures of like a whole bunch of different things, and it's like you can only keep one and the other ones have to go?
Okay, maybe not.
Okay, doesn't matter. You get the scenario. You can
Okay.
only pick like let's say it's eggs, bacon, and soda. You can only have one for the rest of your life, and the other ones you can never have ever again. So you listed off a few different things here: universal health care, abortion rights, LGBTQ. Of those things, you can only have one, and the rest of them, they need to not be like the meme, go away or whatever. Which one do you keep?
Okay, wait. Is it like the opposite occurs for those things?
You just say which one's the most important to you right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. But I'm trying to ask in a fun way, David. I'm trying to ask in a fun way.
You did it. You made me laugh.
I mean, this is a cop out, but abortion rights is healthcare to me. So I think I'd go for healthcare. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you said universal healthcare initially. Is there a distinction between universal healthcare and abortion?
I think abortion is healthcare. I do.
Okay. If you were to separate those things out, and let's say abortion is actually in another category, which according to you it's not, and that's fine. But if it was in another category, would abortion be more important than the rest of healthcare?
Your thought experiment is no fun for me anymore. I would say, I mean, I think the danger comes in my mind with like freedom, autonomy. Because yes, I think healthcare, affordable healthcare, is something that it's just actually like wild that we don't have that in the US. So that seems like just an obvious one. But when we start taking away people's autonomy and freedom, there is this like domino effect. This potential for it, at least, that is extremely scary. So
what's the domino effect is like if we take away certain rights with regards to healthcare and abortion, then more rights might be taken away after that. Is that the domino effect?
Yeah, that would be the way that and again, I do like want to welcome anyone who's more educated on this stuff than I am, because I have only recently gotten interested in trying to figure politics out. But yeah, things like it just starts getting very complicated when we start allowing some of our freedoms to be taken away, right? Like, I don't know if this relates, but like the IV pregnancy and healthcare, I think that seems to be an unexpected sort of like result of the whole abortion thing affecting well, how do we treat embryos and like things that we use in other contexts. Yeah, or what is like, if someone is terminating a pregnancy and that's murder, are we double charging people for murder? When I don't know. I don't want to go too deep into that area, but it gets complicated, right?
Yeah, I think I hear what you're saying. So it's like I think you have concern that freedom, autonomy might be at risk if one of these is limited in some way. Then others might be limited shortly after that, and then more after that. We might you described it as a domino effect.
Right. I do think
Okay.
the answer is somewhere in the middle of like the two-party system.
With regards to like limiting freedoms like having an abortion, someone who might disagree with you, someone who might be voting for Trump in November, I'm going to invite you to try to remember the term steel man from earlier. I'm going to invite you to step into their shoes and try to uh, tell me what you suspect that they might be thinking in regards to abortion and what the reasons for wanting to limit or put restrictions on abortion might be.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, what do you think they would say?
Yeah. I mean, this is something I've thought about because I used to not understand maybe a pro-life position. But I've definitely, I guess, evolved a little bit on that. And for myself, recognizing that it's not a difference of values, but just like a different value system. So like someone who's myself, I very much value autonomy, but someone who's pro life values human life, right? And it's not that I don't value human life as well. Just apparently, because of my own experiences, I might place my own autonomy over human life, uh, whereas someone who's pro life might place it under. And I think that's just equally as valid, right? Um, I also don't think that our goal should be agreement. I think that might be something that gets in the way sometimes. We're never going to agree like 100%. And I don't have to like personally change my mind to placing human life over autonomy in order to have like a working democratic system. And I think, yeah, I think that has changed my view of a lot of things. Is it's not necessarily about agreement, but understanding, curiosity, open-mindedness, so that we can have conversations where we can hopefully address more than just our own benefit. Did I answer your question?
I think so.
I think I kind of like waffled on it a little bit.
I think you answered my question and then some, but that's what we want. We want
Okay.
it explained.
Who I rolled. Leslie said there was an eye roll.
Was it me? I think I do that inadvertently sometimes. I didn't mean it. At least not like that.
It's okay. I accept it. Like, uh-huh. Okay, well, I
doesn't
came
like
up
waffles.
to get the conversation started. I don't really have anything too pressing to say, but it looks like there's some people who might want to talk.
All right. We'll get Mark up here then.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
Right,
Mega.
bye.
Thanks for coming up.
All right, Mark. Get you up here. And before I bring him up, I just want to kind of reset the room a little bit. So we are streaming on YouTube, just like an FYI. It says in the title, but some people, maybe they don't read it. And we're just bringing people up here. We're talking about which political party you associate with. We'll dig down into the reasons for why you associate with it, talk about values, stuff like that. All right, Mark.
Yeah.
Let's get you up here. Hey, Mark.
Nice. Can you hear me?
What's going on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
can hear you pretty good.
Okay, so I'm a conservative and I'm right wing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What are you guys?
I explained it earlier, but I don't think you were in the room, so no worries. So in November, I plan on voting Democratic. However, I feel like the Democratic Party doesn't necessarily fully represent me.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that liberal values are going to benefit America in any way?
I guess it'd depend on the value, like specifically.
So you think like should push LGBTQ and stuff like that and puberty blockers, stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, like there's a few things in there. So like if you're talking about like gay marriage, right to marry, like yeah, I think that's a terrific value. I think that I like that. I think
Freedom.
it's the underlying value would be fairness, freedom. Yeah, I think that's great. When you talk about like puberty blockers, that's probably not something that I am too fond of. I think that's something that we should be extremely careful about. We don't want to cause unnecessary harm. So I think that's something that if we're going to
Yeah.
implement, we should definitely do way more research in that area.
Yeah,
before
so
we do that.
you said you don't want to cause unnecessary harm.
Correct.
Do you think the best path for America to take is without
pretty
causing
broad.
harm?
Without causing harm.
Hmm.
That's a good question. I'm not sure exactly how to answer that.
Well, can I tell you my position?
Yeah, sure.
I think like
Yeah, let's hear it.
I think to reduce like all the degeneracy and stuff, and to push white nationalism and Christian nationalism.
Hmm. And why is that?
Well, first of all, I think like as you can tell by the current crime rate, it's majority black people, majority immigrants are the one doing all the crimes, and white people are like the minority, or they're going to be the minority pretty soon, and they're the only ones holding America together and keeping the traditional values, which is actually associated with Christian values. That's why America had less crime rates then, and that's why I support those stuff like Christian nationalism and white people over degenerate culture you see today, which is definitely not something you should push. It's not liberalism you should push. It's Christ you should seek. Christ is
If
king and Jesus
if
is king.
if everybody that was not white still did the same behaviors and values that you're describing here, the ones that you're saying that should be maintained and not erased, would you still feel as though that white nationalism would be the still most important thing to push?
Well, that's the thing. White people are the only people that can act the way they do because they
Why
have
is that?
traditions. Have traditions to, uh, they have traditions that like socially bind them and their culture. That's why,
Like what?
you can tell black people to like stop doing crimes, right? But they won't. That's the reality. That's why you need tradition to hold the society together.
But what if their
And that
traditions were
tradition is,
different? What if they did different things?
well,
What
let me
about it
ask
would
you
be different?
this. Let me ask you this. We can accept their culture, but what if their culture is harming other people? And that's the reality. They cause violence. They kill their own kind, by the way. Kill other black people. And if you accept that culture,
Sure. White people kill white people too. Sure, right?
well, on a much lesser scale, yeah.
But even if still it's still there. So it sounds like people can make a choice to do different. So what specifically about being white is important? Like why is that part
Well, like I said,
different?
traditions are definitely different.
But tradition's an action, right?
Well, the traditions associated with Christianity.
Christianity is white.
If you look at history, the Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, they were the most successful empires on earth.
Militarily.
Their society had like pretty little crime rates, and yes, they were pretty successful militarily.
But if they had a different skin pigment, they wouldn't have succeeded.
Well, it's skin pigment. It doesn't really matter. It's just something we associate with Christianity.
So
Old
why the white
Christianity.
part? Why not just Christian?
Oh, because black people, they have a way different culture. They come from a different place. So,
I
I
mean,
mean,
I got family in like coal country. I mean, some backwoods stuff. I mean, Jerry Springer is basically filmed in some of my family's backyards. Like, I mean, there's some degeneracy all over, and there's not a black person for miles around there.
I'm not saying all black people are degenerate. I'm just saying you look at their culture, they're accepting of degeneracy. At the very least, they should reject it, but they don't because their culture is socially binding on them.
And so you're saying not all, but all. That's what I'm hearing.
Not all, but a majority. Because the minority that don't, they're the ones who matter. The reality is, that's only a minority.
I'm sorry, you're cutting out. Can you say it one more time?
I'm saying that a majority are like culturally influenced by their their ancestry or whatever, their traditions. But the minority, they're the ones that actually matter. But you can't judge anything based off of the minority, right? Because they're the exceptions.
So if just put a random person in the room that's not white and they had to choose something, what about their ancestry would affect them? Like how do you measure that it's an ancestry that affects a person that way?
Oh, there's a historical context to their race. I mean, you don't just be black. There's obviously like ancestry and stuff. Like we all come from something, we look at history, how the world was created, how where civilizations come from, where civilizations evolved, stuff like that.
I got a question for you, Mark.
Yeah.
Like, if so I'm white, if I were to adopt, let's say, a baby, and that baby was a different race than me, uh, would like would the race of it like determine when it grows up whether it's gonna be a degenerate or if it's gonna be a stand-up kind of person, or is like how I raise it gonna be a factor, or how do we know what's the biggest factor?
Oh, I told you like culture, religion, morality, and I told you that black people are usually inclined to follow their culture. But if you're the one raising them, you have a different culture, obviously.
Okay. So this isn't really much about race, it's more about just the culture?
Sure, yeah.
Hmm. Interesting.
So I mean, if I was a random Joe walking up the street and I heard that it's the whites that need to that the problem is it just needs to be more white and less not white. I mean, doesn't that sound very hopeless for anybody who's not? What are the other people supposed to do who are not white? Where are they supposed to go? How are they supposed to? Are you just saying just they're fucked and let the whatever?
Well, like I
What
said,
about
the
this
white.
Christian culture fits in with actually caring about the people? Like, are they
Well,
cursed that they can't be white? And so is some Mormon stuff?
well, like I said, society is actually going in the opposite direction. It's white people that are going to be the minority and be extinct. And the very reason you see the degeneracy you see today is because there's no traditional Christian culture that America has anymore. You know, you see shootings, you see sexual promiscuity, you see abortions. I mean, you guys probably support it, but you see, I don't know, very degenerate stuff. So, and you can't fix a degenerate society without traditional values.
If these traditional values were kind of the what most people believed in, but we also had a society that had a lot of different ethnicities and maybe some different subcultures. There's people who like rock music and people who like country music. Um, I guess what would that? Well, if in that hypothetical scenario, uh, like what does? I don't know where I was going with that actually. David, where was I going with that?
Uh, I think that's kind of reiterating the question earlier about what about that? Uh, is that the end goal, or is the maybe is that the end goal to have the common culture, or is the end goal to get rid of people who annoy you? That's not what you were saying, but that's what I'm
Well,
asking.
well, it's impossible like to actualize ideals because an ideal world, everyone would be happy, right? But I guess if we try to take the practical approach, we would have to be more severe and be harsher as a society. Start punishing people, start punishing immigrants, and stop supporting immigrants. Stop supporting, I guess, democratic values. Supports these
How do you
When
define
you
an
immigrants.
immigrant?
when you say immigrant, I'm asking. Yeah, I'm define it, but also just punishing them for existing, or if they did something wrong. Can you clarify a little bit?
Oh, punishing them for doing crimes. But
Oh,
I mean, it would
Crime,
be
sure.
practical to not have them in the first place, right?
like any immigrants at all?
So you don't like the freedom to move? You don't like the freedom to assemble? Where'd he go?
He left. I guess he didn't want to talk anymore. So
All right.
there's there's that. If he wants to come back up, we can
Yeah, he's
bring him
welcome to
back up.
continue
Yeah.
talking.
But I guess we'll
We
move.
don't shy away from ideas in this the show, just want to emphasize, like we will talk about these kind of things within relative reason and YouTube guidelines.
That might have been on the edge, but
Yeah,
if there is anybody from YouTube watching, the thoughts of our guests are the thoughts of our guests, and not necessarily the thoughts of the show. Just FYI. But moving on, we'll move on to the next person who had their hand raised until Mark might want to come back up, or maybe not. Up to him. Yeah. Hello.
Hello. I just want to say, both of you, very, very well done in that short discussion you had with that person there. It was well articulated from both of you. And yeah, I guess we can get started.
Yeah.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks. I mean, people are passionate about things because they line up with values they have, and most of the time those values may coincide with some similar values as other human beings. I mean, like he values safety, he values
He valued
justice,
like
those
a
kind of things. Yeah,
nationalistic identity and culture. It
right,
seems,
and that's
it
the
seems that
strategies
he
he's
directly
using.
attached it to race. But
Yeah.
however, I would beg to differ because Christianity is not a white religion.
Yeah, I disagree on the
And I
strategy.
would have probably tried to push him on that and said, well, hey, like historically, like these civilizations have been quite sophisticated. You can take the Egyptians, for example. You can take the kingdoms of Judea. Historically in the Bible, all very, very sophisticated societies that weren't white, and also there's ancient societies like as such in Peru. But yeah,
Sure.
probably not
And
stick on the white supremacy stuff.
well, then you get kind of in the weeds about, like, well, was this piece good? Was that place bad? And then you're not talking about whether or not it'll convince them or not.
Yeah.
The goal is to understand like what motivation, like what reasons, what kind of thought processes support the idea, like what are his markers for understanding it. And I'd rather understand that than just try to argue like a point and get him in a gotcha, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see that. I do admire that. I know I was like goading you on in a chat. I was like, this guy's been putting enough pressure on him. But no, yeah, I completely understand that. I guess like
it.
my main talking point was going to be like sort of like a nationalist leftism.
What's that?
That's the kind of point I hail from. So I believe in like the self-preservation of a nation. And hang on, I have my definition. Hang on, let me find the chat. And then I kind of go flippant between like socialism and just like general leftism. Further now today, I'm like less and less convinced of socialism. I'm also just convinced of like a much softer form of socialism that would still be quite left wing. Yeah, so a person who strongly identifies with their own nation and vigorously supports its interests, especially to the exclusion or detriment of the interests of other nations. They also follow the economic principles They also follow economic principles and political philosophy encompassing diverse economic and social systems characterized by social ownership by the means of production as opposed to private ownership. Also subscribing to Nazism opposition. And then my further updated definition would encompass like essentially a semi-internationalism. So I don't know if you want to challenge me on that or just talk about it.
I would like to know why this concept, why it's important to you.
So a bit like the last guy before, I do strongly identify with a nation. I think in nation you find safety and refuge. And if your nation is unstable, and you haven't addressed it, or your country's political parties aren't addressing it, then that should be something of concern to you, the citizen.
Okay. So kind of your strategy is to
They
adopt
should
this. I think you cut out.
Sorry. Oh, did I?
Sorry. Yeah.
Oh,
And I thought you were
I'm
done.
really sorry. I was just going and say, like, your party should be working for you and not themselves.
Okay.
And therefore they should be doing to their utmost to try and like promote what's it called? An overall net positive.
Yeah. Are you American?
No, I'm dude,
You could have moved. You could have moved. You could have been an immigrant.
Is it because I'm Mormon? No. No,
Are you Mormon?
I'm British. Yes, I am.
Oh yeah. Let's talk more soon.
Let's do
by
it.
your history.
So-
me too.
With regards to so I think your strategy might be to support this idea, right? And what you're trying to achieve is safety. And I'm wondering, with regards to this strategy, how is safety achieved?
Safety. So I define safety as to be in such situation that you not feel dramatic effect of geopolitical collapse or stresses or the ideation of other nations. So to be in some sort of system where your system is going to serve you to the point of which shit can hit the fan in other nations, in neighboring nations, in your trading partners, and you'd be more so kept safe. But safety socially as well. Your social rights should be protected. Your right to identify, your right to be whoever you want, your right to go wherever you want, your right to say whatever you want, included offensive and non-offensive.
This is sounding kind of status quo. Do you have a political party that you feel represents your values?
I'm actually writing a political manifesto.
Because you feel like there's not one, you don't have a flag?
There isn't one. I would actually strongly identify with and that's not a troll. Like dictatorships are probably like the most numerically superior, mathematically correct, efficient political systems when done correctly.
Do you have a historical example currently, or
No, I would I would say like the first ever historical example would be the nation that I propose.
do you have a name for the nation? Let this so we can talk about it formally.
So at first it was kind of like a troll document. I'm not sure if you know Dirac, a vegan activist
Like
from
the
Vegan
old-
World.
Okay, yeah, no, but I thought you were talking about the old dinosaur first-person shooter game, Turrak. But go on.
It is actually a play on that word.
Nice.
I believe. But essentially, let me get this document up. I'll just send you the front page in the side chat. I'm not sure if this is. It's not TOS now. It'll be fine. Actually, I'll cut out the flags. It is like extremely memey. But I do plan to make a version of which gets sent to my parliament.
This is a furry
is-
dictatorship manifesto.
Yeah,
All right.
So I did say it was Mimi. I'm really sorry. Like I haven't drafted like the normal version yet. But that was like started as a joke, but like we've gone like all out. We have like currently half of this manifesto actually drafted out, thought about, like carefully put together. And I feel like this would like strongly represent what I feel should be provided within a society.
So
All right.
this idea of a dictatorship, like
Mhm.
I think many people might think that's a bold strategy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But really, if you enforce a extremely rigorous anti-corruption policy to the point of which an individual would be killed for being corrupt, I think, which is like incredibly cooked to say, I know, but if you enforce that, and it's up on the screen now, and you, sorry, I like lost my train of thought, choo. And you genuinely like carefully like structure this before enacting it, I think it could be like extremely beneficial, because governance self-interest is no longer an issue, and I feel like as of lately, like the things that I have seen in the UK is like disgusting. Like I have never been more dissatisfied with my country's politics, or any country's politics of that matter.
What's
It makes me furious.
What's behind that? The reason behind the poor decisions that your country has been making. Why is that happening?
The Tories, out of self-preservation for their own political party, and their own
so kind of playing
donators'
politics.
interests. So it is just, yeah, it's very, very strongly playing politics. You know, like I quite like the new Labour government's slogan. It is a party for the people, not for itself. But I just want to like take that idea, put it on steroids, and then give it to one like hyper intelligent person.
But what if the hyper intelligent person has a brain aneurysm and turns hyper unintelligent? What do?
It's do what you would do if Joe Biden could over and die tomorrow. The VP would take over. I'm not saying like there would be
the co-dictator.
Like, the co-dictator. The co-dictator actually has no power. But
unless the dictator dies,
the VP,
or is incapacitated,
unless the dictator dies or is incapacitated, yes. However, if they both die, I don't know, you're kind of cooked. I haven't like thought this like into like the schematics of that specifically.
What happens if the dictator starts doing things that aren't exactly good? What occurs at that point?
Okay, so actually that's a very good question, and I've written something about this. So
and you got to summarize because I do not feel like reading.
Yeah, I've got you covered. So it would be AI in governance. No, it would be, hang on, recognition of real time citizen. No, absolute impartial. No, it's below absolute impartiality. It is.
Gotta get your elevator pitch up on this.
Yeah, it's
get into the world
practices.
Court. Let's go.
So, transparency and accountability. The summary is the official position of Fertopia Very Dictatorship Startup is that there will be 24/7, 365 day third-party, fully automated AI-driven watchdog system that heavily scrutinizes anything that could possibly be perceived as a kindling form of corruption and ill-minded intent. If any level of corruption is detected at any moment in time, the watchdog AI, dubbed Watchdog, wait, has this been messed with?
It's been corrupted.
Corruption. The
It's been
watchdog
messed
missed
with.
it.
Yeah, it says
I think
government
your
officials will be immediately eliminated.
your dictator has a Calvinism
By means
problem.
of explosive.
Like he is free to choose and uses intelligence to choose things, but he is bound by the watchdog. So he's not a dictator. He's literally just a flow of the watchdog.
He's bound by good intent.
Restrictions.
The restrictions of the watchdog is to solely act as like a fence, like a rather lethal electric fence.
I don't think this is what a dictator. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's what a dictator.
Can the watchdog make a mistake?
Can the watchdog make a mistake?
Yeah.
Well, given that this kind of system is never been enacted upon a government, probably.
If the watchdog does make a mistake, what happens then?
Societal collapse.
Ooh.
All right, Vicky. Here's what we're going to do. All right, build your watchdog algorithm. You got like 2 weeks. Post
2 weeks, bro. It's taken me like 12 times that to write this document.
Okay, you've got 14 weeks. I mean, you got 24 weeks.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
And you'll host come on my channel. I'll host you, and you can be the simulated dictator, and we'll just try to run a country for a little bit.
That would actually be a super interesting. A super interesting way to experiment that.
24 weeks. We'll put it on the calendar.
If I can
get it done sooner, let me know.
I don't know how to code, but I'll figure something out.
Use AI.
Just have ChatGPT do it for you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
AI. You're trolling me.
No, I legit will host you and do it. And like AI, I mean, ChatGPT will do a lot of that stuff.
True.
You can create language models with language models.
You could probably just do the whole thing in ChatGPT, like just tell it what you're doing, the concept, and it might take care of the rest for you.
Tell it to make a watchdog for you. But we're gonna roll on to Leslie, who's been waiting here.
That's awesome. Thank you for talking to me.
Yeah, thanks for coming up. And I mean, I did not expect that, and honestly, it was interesting to me.
It's interesting.
And now we're going to have a simulated dictator society on my channel coming up. I'm so excited.
I'm disappointed that other guy left.
Oh, you Camu. Yeah, I was really hoping we'd get him up here.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah, maybe he'll come back. We've seen him a number of times.
I'm sure he'll be on a future show. Go ahead, Leslie.
Sure. My perspective is a little bit different, and I decided to come up because it seemed relevant, especially for this server. So I am a Christian, and I feel like probably the worst thing for Christianity is having it be involved with the state. It usurps the power of Christianity and trades it for a much lesser power, and it causes people to be confused about what it's all about. So I feel very passionately that we can't. Oh, there's reverse. Maybe we can have that person come up. They probably have a more traditional view. I feel very passionately that Christians should not band together to form a political movement, or even support one candidate or another. That's my 2 cents.
Why not?
Because it's harmful to Christianity. It puts in Christianity, what saves is Jesus, God, not a political movement. In a way, you could see politics as secular religion. You know, this is what's going to solve your problems. This is what's going to
I do
fulfill
actually
you.
already view them in that way, but
Well, people act like that, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely passionate. And
sports is the Buddhism of secular religion.
what did you say? The Buddhism? The
Yeah,
Buddhi?
sports is the Buddhism of
Oh,
secular
Buddhism.
religion.
I thought you were talking about
Yeah.
Buddhi or something.
I wouldn't put it past him.
David.
Some
What?
people are ritualistic about it, but most people are just like, oh, I like some of these concepts. But anyways, sorry to interrupt you with that.
No,
Leslie,
that's great. Yeah.
when you say it would harm Christianity,
Mm.
in what way would it harm it?
People would associate it with politics, and politics is an imperfect kind of, let's try to solve the problem by moving this knob up here and that knob down there. It's not a relationship with Jesus. It's not part of the religion per se. It's another. And
So the harm would be people would have a misconception about Christianity. That would be the harm.
they would have a misconception, and they, for example, for much of my life, Christianity's been associated with republicanism. So people feel like they have to become a Republican to be a Christian, which is totally not true. There's you can be, you can not be an American. You can be somebody else. You can believe in this thing and that thing. It harms people's entry into considering Christianity.
Do you feel there's any similarity between the organization of like churches and the organization of a political party around some of shared values?
I don't know how to answer that question. Do I feel like there's similarity in organization?
Well, you're saying that you don't think that Christians should organize in that way because it becomes more about problem solving instead of relationship with Jesus. Do you feel as though church actions, church charity, church
No.
groups, things like that, those couldn't fall in the same
No.
trap?
My caution would be against declaring a party or even an issue. I think we have to be really circumspect about that. We have to be really cautious. That doesn't mean there isn't an issue here and there that does have a specific Christian viewpoint, but we need to be very careful of saying this is the Christian way to do it. That's what I mean. It's fine if Christians have an opinion. It's fine if Christians run for Congress or president. It's fine if they go out and picket. But the only thing I object to is them saying, or us saying, this is the Christian position, right? Putting it alongside what would be, the gospel, so to speak. That's
Are there any positions that are like actual Christian positions that you can say this is a Christian position?
There probably are, but I'm not even sure the government is the way to get it done. So, for example, I think Christians should be marching for other people. So I don't think they should be marching for themselves. I don't think we should be out there saying we want Christian rights. We should be marching for the downtrodden, for those people who are not getting rights. That's fine. That's so to do justice. So to do justice and take care of the poor are definitely things that Jesus talked about a great deal. And when justice is not, in my mind, going after the illegal immigrants, those people are the poor. Those people are the downtrodden. They're not the enemy. So that's my 2 cents about that. And so it's disappointing the direction we're going right now. It seems to me kind of unchristian.
Do you feel like there's a political party that represents the Christian values that you're talking about?
No, well, I'm in the United States, so I'm only aware of the parties. I'm aware of the different flavors of parties here. I think you can legitimately call yourself a Christian and be a member of any party because there are things that each party emphasizes that you can actually point to being, priorities. Like, for example, and I might be getting this wrong, but if the Democrats are very concerned about with the poor and justice for the downtrodden, that's a very Christian thing. If the Republicans are concerned about rule of law and making sure that, well, and more values-based things, then that you could go that route. So it just depends on what you're emphasizing.
Hmm. If you had to pick one to represent either you or
Mm,
Christianity, could there be one
Well,
that is better representative?
Do you
I
feel as though people need to choose?
I feel like our politics changed a lot in the last 10 years. I don't even think the traditional parties actually match what we have now. We have a whole, like, for example, now the Dems are much more conservative and the Republicans are populist, which is a kind of a complete shift in what's happened the last what we used to have. So I can't. It's a whole new ballgame right now.
Hmm.
Yeah. I do, I don't want to go. Well, that's my main message. I mean, we could talk about other things if you want to, but that's the main part of what I.
If you don't mind, if I could think for just a second here. Okay.
Thinking is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to do it every once in a while, at least twice a day. All right. So, do you feel as though so people do choose? Like you're saying you think people could be a Christian on either side of the fence with that.
Absolutely.
Are you saying that the same like the Christians can have the same values but have different strategies on how to meet those values?
Yeah, that might be one way to say it. Yeah, sure.
Hmm.
Are certain strategies more effective at meeting those than others?
I personally am not sure. I actually believe in representative government. I believe in the concept. I think any individual is going to have a very skewed view of the world. They don't I don't understand the dynamics. Like, for example, the immigration. I don't understand the economics. I know that we're at zero population growth. I know that I don't understand the global ramifications. I don't understand most of it. And so the way I see it works best is if I can vote for somebody who has my values, who's going to research it and bring in experts and really understand how one culture relates to another, how one economy influences another, how if you decide you're going to put a import on steel, how that's going to affect manufacturing over here and jobs over here. I think it's far too complicated for me as an individual to research all these issues. So I like
Yeah.
representative government.
And how do you choose your representatives? Like what? I mean, if you don't know whether what they know is true or not because you don't have the research,
Right.
how do you decide that they're someone that you should that should represent us?
Well, that's a good question. And I'm not necessarily very good at it, but I will watch them and see if I
Same.
think they're ethical, for one, see if they believe in the same core concepts I believe in, if they believe in representative democracy, if they have a plan to support representative democracy, then I'm much more likely to vote for them. And I frankly won't vote for candidates I don't know anything about. I just leave it blank if I don't know
Don't you know
anything.
you're supposed to just Guess you got a 50-50 chance of getting it right.
Do all the C's like you're filling in
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, C's always right.
Standardized test. Yeah. But neat. I've been thinking about what you're saying, Leslie. Here, we got a good number of hands up, and I think I'm gonna try to get Camu up here before we lose him again.
Yep.
And
Do it.
I saw Fox and Crochet and Zonkt.
Okay.
All lined up here.
Thanks.
Leslie, thank you so much for coming up. It was great talking with you.
No problem. Bye.
Leslie.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, do I have to do something? Oh,
I got you.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up? Long time no talk.
Camu.
Yeah, good evening. It hasn't been too long.
Feels like it's been a while.
Yeah, I haven't talked to you since Vietnam.
Since what? Vietnam?
Yeah. So what's going on? What inspired you to raise your hand?
Well, I don't really identify with either party, but if I had to choose, it would be the Democrats. But I don't really like them either.
Okay.
Uh,
Why them though?
yeah.
It's got to be something about them that that makes you go in that direction.
Yeah. They. One of the things that I heard Carlin say. I mean, I don't think the Democrats quite live up to it today, but what the right likes is property. What the left likes is people. Like the right's all like, we need to protect this property, and the left's like, we need to protect the people and make sure that they're taken care of. And the Democrats, like that they're still corporate shills, but at least they pretend and will try and get stuff on the ballot that is for the people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, there's also the whole abortion thing. Like, the Republicans are going to be against that no matter what. So, that's a pretty big sticking point.
Have you always had these values?
I don't think so. I didn't really, I was always vaguely liberal, but I didn't really care enough. I didn't really get into politics until 2016. But
were you raised in a very like liberal environment, or was this in opposition to the general culture you were raised?
Yeah, I was raised. I'm not sure. My family, I'd call them liberal, or maybe I'm not completely sure what they are, but they definitely were not conservative.
Maybe
And just
the
the culture that I grew up like. When I was growing up, I was in like 2 blue states, so that definitely influenced me.
And then you said something happened in your time that kind of sparked you into being more political.
Yeah, 2016.
2016.
The election of Trump.
What about that was invigorating for you there?
I saw someone that just seemed super evil to me, trying to gain power, and he used these conservative talking points. He'd like scapegoat immigrants. He'd have kind of this paleo conservative style of trying to get people on his side, and I was just against that. So, just kind of searched for some ideology to follow, and I actually ended up going further to the left than liberal.
Yeah.
Got not into as Marx as I'd like to admit. There's a lot that he wrote, but he definitely inspired me after 2016.
maybe what I'm interpreting you here saying is that you kind of see a lot of valid critiques, but maybe this is my guess that you see a lot of practical application of alternate solutions, but maybe valid critiques. That's my guess. By the way, you're
Yeah.
talking this, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to critique a system than fix it. As,
Oh yeah, trust me.
anyone who read Marx finds out.
Mm-hmm. So I know typically I think we talk to you on like religious matters and stuff like that.
Hmm.
What did you want people to hear today whenever you came up?
What did I want to hear? What?
What did you want people to hear today? Like, what were you hoping is broadcasted or illuminated or discussed?
Just aim for the equality of people and don't forget God, I guess. That would boil it down quite a bit.
Yeah. Aim for the equality of people and don't forget God.
Yeah.
Nice. And what will remembering God do for people?
Well, I think that it's good to know true things. And in my opinion, God is a true thing. So just aligning your worldview with that, but also God, at least how I view it, he teaches you to love everybody, to tell the truth, that kind of stuff. It's like a reason to hold your morality. But I mean, of course, you don't need it to have good morals, but it definitely helps. And if you don't have anything underpinning it, it could be a disaster.
If you didn't have that as a motivator, because I mean, a number of our listeners are not Christian for sure. Do you? What would be your second best way to underpin that? And you think the best advice or thing you would do if you didn't have that?
I guess kind of a utilitarian way of looking at things, just trying to make sure that everybody's well taken care of, that everybody has health care, everybody can eat, that kind of stuff. But when I was an atheist, like there was a meta ethical way that I looked at morality called desirism, where people's morality, it's based off their desires. Like they don't want bad things to happen to them, and that transfers to other people. They don't want bad things to happen to other people, so that they have this desire to first off benefit themselves, but also to benefit other people.
Yeah. I can imagine having somebody else run the water systems and the nuclear power plants is pretty nice. I want to get along with that. That's an easy one to agree on, I think.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Love it. Thanks for coming back on. I think I'm going to try to make it. We're hitting it's 10:15 where I'm at. Let's make our way through some of these other callers here, and I'd love to chat some more with you soon.
All right.
Pierce, any questions real quick before I?
I'm good. Nice to listen to you. I didn't say much, but that's okay. Good having you here.
Well, have a good night, I guess.
Hey, you too.
I think this person was next. So we'll
Fox.
We'll get Fox next. Hello.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
Good. How are
Dandy
you?
like candy.
Not too bad. No. The question at hand: which political party do you associate with? Personally, no, I'm not really entwined with either of them. I'm entwined with Jesus Christ. But I questioned the miss had there a minute ago. Well, statement more like she claimed that she could be Christian and be a part of any of these political identities. Personally, I disagree with that because then you have these political identities that claim that abortion is moral and abortion's okay, when abortion is the most definitely an act of murder. So if you're going to say that you can be a Christian and support abortion, I think that's ludicrous. I think that's silly. So yeah, I disagree with her on that, like most definitely. But with the notion of like in the Republican, I guess I would be like kind of on the same boat as that other fellow was Krampus, how he said that he is, in between. He doesn't choose any, but he's more lenient on towards Democrat. I would say I'm more lenient on Republican. Because like if you notice individual Charlie Kirk, he's a bit of a politician, and he would represent himself as a Christian as well. I think he's a very well versed, very good speaker. I think I'd agree with a lot of things that he would say. That fella. That's my position on it anyway, boys.
Yeah. And you said you really don't associate with one, but you lean more Republican because it seems there'd be some kind of blatant things in the Democratic positions that are against your values.
Yeah, absolutely. Like abortion's like just the main one, in my opinion. Like I think yanking a bleeding a big dead baby out of a woman's clit is disgusting, or anything around that area is absolutely disgusting.
Sure. Could you find any? Well, see, I don't want to pigeonhole you into saying that you support Republicans as a whole, but I mean, do you think you could
I'm more
find any
lenient
sort
on
of,
them, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any qualms with any of their policies?
What do you mean?
I mean, do you have anything similar that would say, like, if you're fully embracing this, you're going against Christian values?
Well, I think as a Christian, we're told to pick up our cross and follow Jesus. I think that's like, the objective notion of what Jesus taught is to put away your flesh and pick up your cross. Like, absolutely. Walk in his spirit. Like, I don't think Jesus was a Republican. I don't think Jesus was a Democrat. You know what I'm saying? So, with that said, I'd say following Jesus would be the absolute way to go about it. Like but I would agree with like the notion of like in politics, Republicans who do have a better mindset, more lenient towards what Jesus taught, opposed to Democrats. Right? Not saying I am a Republican, but I'm saying like they are more in touch with those teachings than a Democrat would be.
Can we discuss maybe some of those that you think might line up? Like, what are some of the things that Jesus taught that you think are representative in that way?
Excuse me.
No problem.
Well, once again, just to clarify, Jesus wasn't a Republican; he wasn't a Democrat. But I'm just saying, like,
we're just talking about individual things.
From what I see, yeah. So like conservatism, how they would, be more lenient on like, no fornication before marriage. How they would be like traditional household, no progressive LGBT ideologies. Like these things are all taught in the Bible. Leviticus talks about if one was to have sex with someone of the same sex, it would be deemed as an abomination.
This is what Jesus
Deuteronomy.
taught?
Yeah, so this is the Old Testament. This is the Torah. These are the teachings of the inspired word of God, wrote down by the scribes, by the Jews. Right. So in Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 5, it states, "For a man to wear a woman's garment also be seen as like, an abomination, disgusting." I'm paraphrasing this now. But that would basically go against transgender ideologies. So likewise within the conservatism, they would be in more touch with those teachings. And someone of
so they
more progressive
abstain
ideology
more.
would be.
Do you have
what
any?
you mean?
So you think the Republican Party has abstains from things that you think are specific examples in the Bible that would go against? Do you have anything that you think they yeah, they do specifically, aside from just avoid, if that makes sense.
Well, David, so you're trying to say to me that do you think they do things like how Jews were taught, or like that's
Yeah,
in more
yeah,
touch with like traditionalism?
yeah. Like, because
Um,
I can get the way that somebody can be non-offensive. Like, I mean, they could say like, all right, look, these guys are trying to keep their nose clean. That's respectable. But to
like
have
I can't say there's any off the top of my head now, to be brutally honest with you, but I can say that they do fall into line with the teachings of the Bible more consistently, at least. Maybe not in a full, definitely not in a full, actually, now that I think about it, but more consistently than one of a progressive type of notion of the spectrum.
Sure, and I'm not trying to get you to like defend the Democratic Party because it seems to go against the values you. I'm not trying to get you to push that way, but what I'm trying to say is, um, it, it's curious to me in a lot of ways because like the Republican Party, because they abstain from a lot of things, but as you can see, it's kind of hard to think of things that they push that are not just avoiding. I mean, it's
Like what
just
exactly? Like you seem like you have some things in the back of your brain you want to get out. Go ahead and say
that's
them.
why I don't. That's what I'm trying to find out.
You
Like
don't.
I'm trying to think of something that they posit something they say that we should do this because this is the good instead of we shouldn't be doing this, which I get is
Right.
good
Yeah.
in the
So we
context
we
of that,
should
but
yeah. So we should promote traditionalism because traditionalism is good, and a
traditional as
household that
in
had
not changing and abstaining from the changing. You get what I'm
yeah.
saying?
So as in like a man and a woman, they are with each other and they hold a household with kids. The
Sure.
father's the
Don't
provider,
change the
the
traditional
mother
family
takes care
setup.
of the kids. Yeah, exactly. There you go. Spot on. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah,
I think that's a beautiful thing that we shouldn't abstain from. That's something that we should keep in tradition. What the progressive ideology wants to
I get how
do
you're
is to
phrasing that.
say that
Okay, sorry.
yeah. So what the progressive side, like the what's it called, Democrats, liberals, whatever. What they're trying to do is they're trying to come over this notion that you can sexually gratify yourself by, can be castrating yourself when you're young if they choose to do so of their own free will, even though these young people don't actually have, the facilities or mental to actually make the decisions of their own accord. Like if you're going to say to a little child that it's okay to go and bleed and become transgender, take HRT, then how are they going to know the difference? Do you know what I mean? Like that's pure indoctrination. Like they're not going to have a clue. Like they don't know if they like bleeding cars or Barbie dolls at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm.
with that said, I would say on that side of the spectrum, we need to protect the kids from those type of ideologies because that's absolutely disgusting to think that those types of things can be pushed on the kids. And if there's grown-ups going around thinking it's acceptable, then what are the kids going to think? They're going to follow the grown-ups as role models. Like at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying?
Kids follow
Like,
grown-ups and for all sorts of things for sure. And like I'm just to be make sure it's not misunderstood here. Like I have reservations about uh the early age gender affirming care stuff. Like to me, like I don't think there's enough science on it personally. But me personally, I think after somebody's 18 years old, I think that's between them and their maker, so to speak. So whatever.
sure, I wouldn't entirely disagree with that. But from my moral system is the Bible. The Bible is telling us not to do this type of stuff. As I referenced Deuteronomy, don't be wearing a woman's garment. As Leviticus, don't be having sex with someone of the same sex. Either remain celibate or find a wife, or even go to Mount Athos and become a monk. Like
Can you
give
think
your life
of
to God,
any?
live for God.
Could you be a Democrat and not have those social stances? And is there anything else outside of outside of the social things like the marriage, the gender, the things like that that a
Well,
Democrat might
define
stand
Democrat
for?
for me.
Well, that's what I'm asking you.
What's
Like
the
whenever you say that,
well?
yeah,
Well,
just so I
when
can
you say
understand where you're coming
Democrat,
from.
my brain, yeah, so when you say Democrat, my brain instantly goes to somebody who's more lenient on progressive ideologies, like affirming HRT onto individuals like men and women who want to be the opposite sex, saying that it's okay to, go practice these homosexual like
Like
ideologies, saying that it's acceptable to like teach young
Yeah,
children about gay stuff.
I get you. We're repeating on at this point. Could
Right.
somebody be a Democrat and still believe? I mean, and not agree with those things? Like, what would they still do? Can you think of other things that a Democrat might believe outside of those things?
Sure, there's good and there's bad and everything. I'm sure like equality is a good thing. But sure, that's already taught in the Bible. I mean, like, because we're all given the innate value installed by God, because we're all created in the image of God. So no
Do you
one's
feel
self
as
is
though
better than
they
another
view
individual.
equality different than the Republican Party?
Yeah, absolutely. So on paper, it seemed like quite well. It's like, okay, everybody, they have equal rights, that's fine. But then when there's an opinion that opposes their view, then that equality kind of goes out the windows, and they like to cancel, don't they? So
Is that a democratic value, or is that just a political
yeah, that's the democratic side of the spectrum.
hostility?
Yeah, because if it, I mean, I don't know what you're speaking from, but from my own personal experience, I've witnessed myself that individuals who would oppose a view of someone in the Democrat like group, they would typically be seen as, aggressive towards their view. I think that's the right way to
Mm-hmm.
put that. And that they would, do their best to silence that individual with a different view, which is called being cancelled, right? So I think with that in place, the equality kind of goes out the window. On paper, it looks good, but it's
Yeah.
equality for all until you have a different opinion from what they have. You know what I'm saying?
If I walked into a church or a mosque and started saying I disagreed with them, do you think they would just say, "Hey, we're still equal and whatever"? I mean, I'm sure there might be
I think
some
it depends.
situations that can't, but I mean, you can understand like there are religious people, like very zealous religious people in different environments. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's
So,
you ask your average Joe on the
so it,
street, they'll probably be like, "Hey, why are you talking
mm,
to me? Leave me alone." But I mean, after you do give them $5 to sit and talk with you, I mean, they'll probably
yeah.
just have, yeah, agree to disagree.
I think it's quite interesting that you brought up the church and mosque analogy. I think that's actually quite one I can actually touch on quite well. So within the context of a church, personally, I'm inquiring Eastern Orthodoxy. From my own personal experience in the Eastern Orthodox Church, one of the best communities I've ever been a part of. Like typically, you'd have people in Eastern Europe as categorized as these like mall Slavic hard people who are just stone faced all the time, no emotion, no fun, just angry people all the time. But that could be further away from the truth. The one I attend is Romanian Orthodox, and they're honestly one of the best communities I've ever been a part of in my life. Like I'm living in Ireland, and the Catholic Church that I used to attend to is nothing in comparison of community to this Romanian Eastern Orthodox Church that I'm currently attending now. Amazing community. Like they have games after the church service is done. They have food. They have chats. Like they're beautiful community. Like they even sometimes go out. Like, you know what I'm saying? But
Sure, get us some things.
so if you were to come in there with an opposing view, I'd say they would they would welcome you in, and they would, they'd have be more welcome as long as you're respectful to have a chat with you. Same thing goes with the mosques. Like, so let's say you went to like a mosque in somewhere in like America or
Right.
something like
My
that, right?
goal is not to say that I get you, but you're just going to read. I don't want to cut you off, but
No,
you're
no,
going to
I
reinforce
was
it with
actually,
another example,
yeah, no, I was
right?
actually about to make a compromise there. If you were to do that in the Middle East in a mosque, then you would be deemed as like, aggressive and possibly killed for having a different view in the
Mm.
Middle East,
And I'm sure
right?
various
So
times
that's
in
in
the
a place that has
society, I
Sharia
mean,
law.
you might run into that in all sorts of different religions. My goal isn't to just say like, what about this one? What about that one? What I'm trying to say is there's a certain amount of group cohesion that develops within groups, like a certain amount of uh, tribal identity and pride that comes about when people get ingrained and become, whenever their ideas become part of their identity. And whenever you start crossing somebody's identity, who they are, what they say, like, I feel like I'm a good person because I believe this, and somebody's saying that is not good, you're saying that you're not a good person, and people get defensive, people get rally out. And then we live in an environment where we have any sort of concession to the other side is seen as like uh, points to us. Instead of us working towards a mutual goal, it's like, oh, you're letting them win this, and it's like points for them and loss for us instead of us figuring out something. So I mean, there's a lot of reasons that I think there's a lot of uh, fear and anxiety that people come out and they try to cancel people because I think it's self preservation. And whether or not it's a good strategy, whether or
Well,
not it
I'd say
actually
it's a way they're
helps,
hiding something.
I don't think so. But I think it's kind of like a natural reflex. It's like you put somebody in a cage.
Well, would you
with
agree on that,
somebody.
David?
What was the question?
Would you agree that they're trying to hide something?
Who's they?
These individuals are trying to silence other people for having opposing views. Do you reckon they're trying to hide something? They protect something that they would see as beneficial for themselves of their own selfish gain?
It depends on the person, obviously. I mean, there's plenty of cases in which people are being mischievous or being ill-willed or whatever. I'm sure. I mean, there's all that's everywhere. That's no denying. But I mean, I think in the general, like, I mean, you go on a Discord and somebody starts getting defensive and isolating their group. I mean, most of the time it's just because they're afraid of dealing with trolls. They're afraid of dealing with aggression, or afraid of being singled out in a way that being vulnerable, and then somebody taking that vulnerability and taking advantage of them on both sides. I think that happens in both circles. Like, if we came in here to the Christ-centered Christian thing, earned a bunch of people's trust, and then like just started dunking on it and like being absolute jerks, like, I mean, it would I think it would be worse than if we just came in like guns a blazing. Like, when you let people in closer, you're more vulnerable. And so I think it's completely reasonable that people are a lot of times scared to let people they don't know in to the circle, let people into the discussion, because also people will dominate. Attention is currency in the marketplace of ideas, they say. And it's like, if they can just be the squeaking wheel, they're going to get the oil. They're going to move the conversation away from whatever that group or what these people's values are. It's hard. It's very difficult. So you got to choose who you let in, and it's hard to trust people.
It's an interesting perspective on it.
We tend to associate other people who have similar identities to our own as part of our in-group, people who we can trust. And people who don't share these same identities, we consider them the out-group. And they are people that we don't know if we can trust. And overcoming that is something that is really difficult to do for most people.
It's like something to do with trust issues.
Sure. And
I'm sure a lot of people have trust issues. I mean, people aren't trustworthy. I mean, there's a lot of people who will do you in for a little cheeky loan of a little bit few euro, like. So I don't disagree with that at all. I think having trust issues is actually more of a good thing. But to be completely like
self-preservation
away from, but to be completely away from ever like trusting anybody, I think is quite silly. Because you need to have trust in people.
Violence in a lot of ways. Like, I think it leads to animosity. I think it leads to depression. Like, it's a root of a lot of social strain.
I think it's about choosing your circles carefully and not having them expand so wide, because if you have such a big one, it's hard to monitor these things. But a big psychological actual like influence you can have, and a better way to monitor these things is by simply having your friend group as small. Like, it doesn't mean you can't like associate and be kind to people. Absolutely, you should. But what I am saying is, if you have a smaller friend group, it's easier to keep track on like what is this person's intentions, like are their body language more like open and welcoming to when I'm having these conversations, are they more distant and cold, are they giving you the cold shoulder, like, I'm saying to you. But I think that's a good way to actually have a good mindset to have. To be kind to everybody, but only trust some.
Yeah. I mean, you got limited time, space, and energy, and you can only use it on one thing at a time. And so you can be open to experiences, but at the same time, you're limited. So I think it's completely reasonable to. I agree. Is what I'm trying to say. How do you say your name?
Christodi. It's Irish.
Christodi. Very
That's
cool.
Right. Thank you very
any
much.
last questions or anything here? We're gonna hit the next caller here.
Yeah. Well, listen, boys. It was good having a chat with you. May God be with you. I don't know what your position is on that and everything, but sure, look, it was good having a conversation. Good to see your different opinions and views and everything like that. Thanks for giving me the time to talk on this stage, and God bless.
Hey, thank you so much. You as well. Yeah.
Take it easy, boys.
I believe Fox was next.
Yep. Getting Fox up here.
Yeah.
Hey
Hello.
guys, how are you
Hello,
doing
what's up?
today?
Good.
That's
Pretty
good.
good.
Thanks for what you guys are doing, like leaving an open space for everyone to talk about their ideas and having this open dialogue. I think it's pretty cool. I like when people can discuss things. But anyway,
Yeah.
I as like Mango, the first original caller, I'm not very political myself. I kind of my views on politicalness is one side picks one thing and the other side has to pick the other thing to be counter to each other.
Hmm.
But I find it difficult that and I'm Christian. I don't know if that is gonna color this conversation or not, but I find it difficult that uh, like one of the debates is like gun control, and like one side wants less guns and wants guns off the street, and one side wants more guns and wants wants more people to have the ability to fire guns. And me and a coworker today were just talking about a recent shooting that happened at a school, and it's become very commonplace that we've become desensitized. We've sort of become. I just no one really knows that there's like a shooting happening because people might not hear the next one that happens. So I don't know. Like I think in a sense, um, I vote. I
Breaking up.
do sides of them. You should have less.
Your signal's going in and out. You keep cutting out.
Yeah.
I actually think it might be Discord in general.
Do I sound better now?
Ah,
I
Do I
broke the
sound okay?
system.
you
You
hear me
sound
okay,
robotic
David?
to me.
I mean, you got a really good Daft Punk impression.
Really? Okay, it looks like Discord was having an issue. Looks like we're okay now.
We're back.
We're good now?
Yeah.
We're good.
But you see both sides of the argument.
Yeah.
And then what do you go there? What's the next step you do then? I mean, how does one decide what?
Well, like I understand the argument. The argument is really just like people kill people, not the guns that kill people. But I'm like it bothers me, and this sort of ties into healthcare too. But it bothers me that like in a lot of scenarios, there was signs that people were about to commit a crime like this, school shooting or something, and I find that we live in a country I live in the USA, so we live in a country that's reactive. We will punish someone for doing a crime, but we are reluctant to stop someone from committing a crime unless it's going to be really devastating. And like, to be fair, I believe there should be less assault rifles and like weapons that would kill more people in a faster way. I don't think the general public should have access to those. I mean, in my opinion, you can still have fun sport shooting with other types of weapons.
Let me ask you a quick question about what you just said. Did you say that the people won't stop things before Do you mean as though like try to prevent them from
prevent-
wanting to do it, or try to arrest them before they do it?
Well, maybe not go to full arrest, but more towards that angle, like put them into a psych ward, or do an evaluation on their house beforehand, like strictly put preventative measures in. I don't feel like we live in a country. I mean, I guess there is preventative measures if you think about like things that we've adapted since shootings and stuff. But I mean, the political climate, the security is ramped up at more like local debates and stuff because of the recent events. But before that happened, security was kind of lax, and security wasn't as like built or buff. So it's very reactionary in terms of preventing something happening. And I know this is not like a political. Well, it's kind of adjacent to a political stance, but
Can I try to recap what I've heard so far?
sure.
So I think it kind of sounds like you might be leaning Democratic from kind of the context I've picked up.
Mm.
And it sounds like an important issue to you might be gun rights or gun safety. And it sounds like you've been hearing a lot on the news about shootings, maybe specifically in schools. And because you value safety, you want yourself and everyone to be safe. Perhaps it sounds like you might lean towards gun restriction rather than enhancing or keeping gun rights.
Correct.
Okay, cool. And I think one of the strategies you said was kind of like be proactive, maybe arrest people who might be like making threats or something like that, or might do a shooting or something like that.
Put them in a place where it's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're on the right. Yeah, it's the right
Okay.
place.
Yeah, that might be like one strategy to like reduce gun violence. So let's put all the strategies out on the table. What are some other ideas that we could do to increase safety?
I mean, the one side is talking about like giving teachers weapons and teaching them how to shoot guns. And this kind of goes to the other side of things, and letting more people have guns be more safe. Which, I mean, it is true in some sense, but I don't. I guess another thing that I've heard that they've done in the past is gun donations and people turning in certain types of guns. I know in the UK they like outlawed most, if not all, guns, and stabbings have gone up because of that. But that's because they don't have any more guns. So I mean, so there are. I've seen some preventative measures around me. Yes.
So we've got like give all teachers guns, more guns. Everybody gets gun. You get a gun. You get a gun. You get a gun.
True.
And then we got the other strategy where it's like take away all the guns. Government gets a gun. Government gets a gun. Government gets a gun. We got those two strategies.
Take a gun.
Yeah.
Which one do you think might be the better strategy?
I haven't really sat with this too long myself. I would probably have some stipulations on if everyone gets a gun. There needs to be a a mental status check on them before, but I do believe that does happen. I like I honestly believe that if we take away all guns, people are still gonna find, because most of these times when people have a gun in their possession, it's not that they've got it legally of sense. So they kind of took it from their parents, or if we're talking about like school shootings. So I think like taking it all away might be too strict. So
Okay. That might be too strict. There might be like some stipulations there. So it might be like what is your ideal strategy? So like, is it that you should restrict the guns, have some? I'll let you speak. I don't want to speak for you.
no. I also wanted this to be open discussion, so I appreciate that too. My ideal strategy would be to get rid of the high-powered weapons, the ones that do mass killings, like the assault rifles and the automatic weapons. I don't think we need those around us. I mean, I'm a person who's gone hunting myself. I've hunted some animals and everything, and that can be sport, and that's fun. And then I also think that we need a rigorous vetting process before getting a weapon. But there's some kind of lack with that too, because sometimes the first shooting is the first time someone's got a gun, because usually you're caught after the first time. The first time you do a big incident like this. So I really don't know what the most corrective answer is, but I do feel like taking the ones that cause the most damage off of the table would definitely reduce the harm to everyone.
Gotcha. You said you're not sure on what the best strategy or policy might be. And that's perfectly fine. I don't have all the answers, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
with trying to figure out what the best strategy is for safety, so that we're all safe. How should we go about making that determination? How do we figure that out?
I would say I would look at statistics, look at what type of well, I would bring experience, statistics, and people that are knowledgeable of in this field to give both sides of their opinion, and then um, and then push it against the fact that um, school shootings and mass killings have been on the rise. So if there has been any limitations that we've put on as a whole nation, that hasn't really, we haven't really curved this pandemic that we're in of mass shootings. So what is, I would ask both sides, what is a fair way to have your guns, but to have less mass killings.
Okay. What I heard was you said the word fairness. You said you'd ask both sides what a fair way would be to be able to keep some weapons. And
Yeah.
it sounds like fairness is also something that you value alongside safety. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Is there one that's more important than the other?
between fairness and safety.
Yeah.
I think safety because like uh the human life is one worth lived.
Gotcha.
So
So I'm a little bit confused. Hopefully you'll be able to explain it to me so I understand. So safety is more important. I guess why would you ask both sides what is fair if safety is more important than fairness?
well no. You asked me you made me pick between two. And if I was to pick between two,
Okay.
I would
Gotcha. So safety is more important, but fairness is still pretty high up on the list.
yeah.
And yeah, okay, I gotcha. Totally.
I'm not trying to make like an ultimatum here. Like
I gotcha. Yeah, I didn't mean to make you pick one or the other. I guess I did kind of. That's my bad. Okay.
Mind if I close this up with one question, guys?
Sure.
Why did you want to come up and share today about gun control? Why was that important for you to talk about today?
Well, people's mental health has been on my mind, and the fact that more young people can and will have access to guns. It's just saddening to me because I've had friends in very close to being at the end of a gun, basically, to say it in a different way.
Yeah, sorry about
and
that.
Yeah, but and also I think this topic was something that I felt like I could express with having at least some passion and some knowledge about it,
Sure.
without being like, oh, I just am this way because I don't know very much. So I felt like I had some knowledge to back up my opinion.
Sure. Well, I really appreciate you coming up, Fox. Pierce, I hope I didn't interrupt any of your questions you had there, but
You're good.
anything?
Good.
Awesome. Fox, thanks for sharing with us, and I'll be thinking about the things you're saying.
Thanks for coming up, Fox. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Stage.
Thanks. Oh. Was it Zonkt or Chris Wola?
Oh, I think it was Zonkt next.
Yeah.
Hello there.
Hello, can you hear me?
Can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah.
Good, because with the last guy you had some, technical difficulties, but now it seems all worked out, so that's good.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's nice to hear. And by the way, thank you for doing this, and you guys are both doing a great job with the questions. Must say.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So what inspired you to come up on stage?
Well, at first I didn't want to until I heard some of the other speakers speak. Because the original question to me, which is the title of this event, which political party do you associate with, is actually, a question that causes the reactions from the different people here, mostly Christians as we are in a Christian server, that I expected, which is sort of an attitude of wanting to distance themselves from politics, from the political parties, from the nitty-gritty, and talk about the larger, more moral issues. Because, Christians and even non-Christians, I'm sure a couple are listening, but Christians and non-Christians, we all are unhappy about the political situation of both parties. Even if you're the farthest left person or the farthest right person, whatever you are, everyone is unhappy with both political parties. But I think what's important, and this is mainly targeted at Christians, but also non-Christians, I guess, who have a similar attitude. The main thing I want to point out is in Romans, and I'm not, I'm not the most, I'm not capable of laying out the Bible verse word for word. But what I will do is sort of paraphrase. In Romans, Paul says we ought to pray for our leaders, respect our leaders, accept our leaders, for God has put them here on earth for a reason, even if we might not necessarily like those leaders. And in the times of Paul, in the times of Jesus, he was referring to the Roman Empire, which is, for the Jews at the time, that political situation, we might think we have a terrible political situation, but at the time of Paul with the Romans, that was a far more tyrannical, far more oppressive, to use sort of modern terminology for that, a lot more tyrannical government, a lot more tyrannical political situation than we have now. And yet Paul had the wisdom through divine inspiration to write in scripture that we ought to sort of have a deferential attitude towards our leaders. And I think Christians and all people should have the same attitude towards politics and not view ourselves as above it, right? Now, if you're asking what my opinion is, I guess we can go to that later. But that would be the main point I want to make. Not to view yourself above politics. Because even though, of course, neither political party is perfectly Christian, neither political party is even as Christian as they were 20 years ago, we live in the real world. This is the system we're in. We might want to change it, but those that are capable of understanding the flaws need to be patient, need to be diligent, need to pray if they're Christian. If they're not, they need to be tactical and not infiltrate the system, because that sounds like you're subverting it, but simply understand it, vote for the people you want to vote for, to bring about change within the system. Because if you just opt out, that's not really doing anything. And so I'll just say that. Kind of long-winded, but I think I got my point across.
I gotcha. So I think what I'm hearing is that we have a imperfect political system. We got a system with problems in both parties, and I think the strategy was to vote for who you want to be in office.
Mhm.
If we have political parties and both of them are so broken, do we really have a good option if both of them aren't good?
Well, they're not good in different ways. And since we're, in an election year, and I think it's best to keep it as far away from the two candidates as possible and kind of look at it more broadly. It's still important to talk about it because, we can't just ignore the elephant in the room with the election coming up, especially. In this election, I would say, and I speak for myself personally, but I also think Christians in general, there is one that is far better than the other. And for me, that would be Donald Trump over Kamala Harris and the Democrats.
Okay. And why is that the case?
Kind of a broad question. I'd say, simply speaking, the policies, the positions of Donald Trump's campaign are far better for the country, are far more moral if we're going to talk from a Christian perspective. But even just from a secular perspective, the policies are far better and they're more in line with what normal everyday people who are unhappy with the current system want. Kamala Harris doesn't really have that many policies. And currently, even though both parties obviously are part of the establishment, the Democrat side and Kamala Harris represent sort of they represent the era of politics that has left so many Americans and so many people disillusioned with both parties, with all the foreign wars, the economic state, and so many other issues. She, alongside the current Democrats, represent that era of politics that has even made this question a question in the first place, that makes so many people uncomfortable.
Okay. We got Trump, we got Harris. You mentioned some policies. It sounds like you prefer the policies of Trump. Which one of these policies is the most important to you?
In the current election, it's immigration would be the most important to me. But for others, it can be a numerous amount of things. The main point to make is Trump, if he doesn't embody this fully, but he at least represents an opposition to the current establishment, and that's the main thing. But if you're talking about a specific specifics rather, a political position, it would be immigration would be the main thing.
Why is this particular policy so important to you?
Well, because it's a question of demographics and the future of the country. It's a question and it also encompasses all the other policies. If you have a lot of illegal immigration, which is what has happened over the last 4 years and over the last 50 years, but it's skyrocketed over the last 4 years. If you have a lot of illegal immigration, there's going to be, by definition, there will be more crime because more people have committed the crime of illegally entering the country. But of those people that are not vetted when they're entered, there will be more criminals. Because there will be more immigrants coming in who will be put on Social Security, for example, and Medicaid and such things, the healthcare system will go down. Because there will be more people who, want to compete for housing, etc., the economy will also be affected. So it affects everything. But really, it's a question of, the survival of the nation. But it encompasses all aspects.
Is the problem that the population goes up? That there's more people in the system?
That's part of the problem from purely economic standpoint, because a lot of, for example, in the past, Republicans would say immigration helps GDP, which it does. But if you look at the wages, for example, wages have stagnated almost consistently over the last 30 years. And now, because of the housing crisis, the housing prices skyrocketing, basically no one can afford a house because wages have not gone up alongside the housing prices. And the problem with having a much larger population, and it's not just a larger population, it's a larger population of people that compete for what would traditionally be classified as low-skilled jobs, right? And so if you have many, many people competing for the same jobs, then employers can offer lower wages. And that can be a problem for the economy.
Are the employers Democrats?
No, not at all. In fact, like I said, in the past, Republicans have always been iffy on the immigration situation. And that's why I said Trump is the better option than Kamala. I didn't say the Republicans were better than Democrats. But, I mean, like a speaker earlier said, Republicans used to be, or at least nominally, were the party of big business. And big business would obviously they would make up a lot of these employers. So no, it's not Democrats or Republicans specifically. But currently, in the day that we live today, the Democrats are advocating for higher rates of immigration, mainly illegal, which is the bigger problem, but legal as well.
I'd like to ask about, so we're talking about immigration and we're talking about possible negative side effects of this immigration. We talked about a few different things. We talked about jobs, talked about the economy, future of the country, potential crime. Of all these things that we discussed, is there one that stands out to you as more important than all of the rest?
Yes, it's simply a matter of respect for the country. In order, what is a country separate from other countries? What makes America America, right? It's two things. It's the borders that surround it. There's a land that constitutes the United States, and then there's a land next to it that constitutes Mexico. These lines have been drawn through history, and these lines ought to be respected. That's number one. And the second thing that makes a country is the people of America, the people that have lived in America, that have jobs in America, that have family that have lived in America for a while, or that are second, third, even first generation immigrants that have come to America legally and respect America as an institution. If you allow for mass immigration of people who don't have that disposition towards America, you will lose at least part of the soul of the nation. That would be the two biggest problems. So simply a matter of laws, you can't have millions of illegal immigrants, because that would be a dereliction of duty to protect the border, which is what a country's leader should primarily do. And the second would be the people of the country need to be taken care of first.
When you say soul of nation, are you saying like the majority, like the values that the majority of the people in that nation hold?
In part, yes. That would be in large part what I meant by that. Maybe soul wasn't the right, term for it. It's the term that slipped out, but you
That's fine.
clarified it, and it would be something along those lines, yes.
A metaphor.
Okay. If there were other people who were coming to the United States, and for sake of this hypothetical, let's say they are coming legally, and there's a decent amount of people coming in, but they all share the same values that the majority of the people in the United States have already. Is that
Mhm.
something that you would be okay with?
It would depend. It would depend to what degree, because you're.
Oh, they're totally got American values. Like they're
No,
holding
I
up
meant. I
flags
meant.
as they
I meant
walk
in
in.
terms.
Rock flag
Sorry
and
to
eagle.
interrupt, but I meant in terms of number of immigrants.
Oh,
Because
gotcha. Let's say it's
because you.
similar to what's going on now. Similar to those numbers.
Okay, well, that would be unsustainable. Yes,
Okay.
in its current numbers.
Okay. Let's change the hypothetical. Let's say it's like 20% of the current numbers.
Hmm. Well, I would most certainly prefer and would even welcome a situation where we would have immigrants come in who, whatever you do to determine this, whether it's a civics test, merit-based system like Australia has, a points-based system, the purpose is the people coming to America have to serve American interests rather than America serve the immigrants' interests over the people who live in America, who can't get housing, can't get good health care, and are struggling, just generally. And so it's about priorities. If every immigrant loved America in the way that I would envision that would be great. But that's like I said at the beginning, both parties are not to our ideal, but we have to live within the world that we live in. The same answer could be given to your hypothetical, which I know that kind of defeats the purpose of a hypothetical, but we live in the real world. The immigrants, in large part, not all of them. In fact, I wouldn't even say most of them. I don't think most of them intentionally have any bad intentions. It's the politicians who, through illegal immigration and other things, have the bad intentions.
Interesting.
What benefit would a politician have in supporting
Well,
illegal immigration?
Well, number one would be voting. If you look at the rates of voting, immigrants, whether legal or illegal, vote large part far more Democrat than what you would call the native population. I know that's a loaded term for Americans, but sort of the people who live there, as opposed to the immigrants, vote differently. That would be one. The second one would be economic, which I mentioned earlier. They can pay these immigrants lower wages. They can threaten them by deporting them if they get out. Large interest groups exist around keeping this operation going on both sides, both left and right. But currently, the only party that advocates for more illegal immigration, for more legal and more amnesty would be Kamala and the Democrats.
Yeah, so you're saying voting, and you're saying you can be illegal and vote. You don't have to have any kind of credentials to vote.
Well, legally, of course, you have to be a citizen to vote, but we've seen before that a lot of illegals have voted in elections. But even if that didn't happen, the goal of the policy of allowing all these people in is to have amnesty. In the 80s, Ronald Reagan, a very popular Republican president, granted amnesty to millions of people who had come in illegally decades before. Right? And those people, at the time of the 80s, California was a comfortable red state, as you would call it, a state that voted Republican. Now, there's no chance a Republican can ever win it again because of that. So even if illegals never voted, they want to make the illegal people legal to let them vote.
Can you think of a scenario in which the Republicans could have a policy position that would be enticing for someone who is an illegal immigrant to vote for them instead? I mean, what benefit do they get for Republican? I guess you're saying like they could just get in for free if they vote Democrat, because then there'd be no border. Is that what you're saying?
Well, your question, and I don't want to be confrontational, so don't take this the wrong way.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Your question denotes like Republicans ought to, or that I guess more anti-immigrant adjacent people ought to appeal to these people, right, who came into the country illegally, as you gave an example to. And that simply shouldn't be the case. A country has borders, those borders should be respected. Now, should Republicans appeal to immigrants that came in legally and their children who have the right to vote, for example? Absolutely. We live in a country with a lot of people who are descended from immigrants, whether
do
Italian
you feel as though that
immigrants-
people who I'm so sorry to cut you off, but do you feel as though people who come in the country legally are more inclined to vote Republican or more inclined to vote Democrat?
Well, I don't want to get into too much detail, but I'd say generally they vote more Democrat than Republican. But it depends on which group of immigrant. But if you were to group them all together, they would vote more Democrat than Republican.
Well, that's why I guess I'm asking, like, what people entice anybody who has migrated into the U.S. to go through it legally and still want to vote Republican. I guess that's what I'm wondering if we could think of anything that would be enticing that way, because it sounds. I mean, what are I'm just trying to understand where my thought process went, because I got distracted. Sorry, guys. I lost my train of thought.
Are you asking, like, if immigrants come in and vote Democrat, are you asking if it's on Republicans and people with more Republican leanings in terms of opinions, if it's on them to perhaps lay out a better platform for these people, and that ought to be their strategy rather than fight against those people coming in the first place? Is that your question, more or less?
Well, I imagine people are going to want to come to the U.S. no matter what. So it's not that they won't come if Republicans are in office. They're still going to want to come, but if they don't vote Republican after it's set up in that regard, I mean, why would a native-born citizen want to vote Republican, but an assimilated immigrant not want to? I mean, if they go legally and then they're good.
Well, I would simply refer back to the hypothetical that Mr. Watkins gave earlier, which is if the immigrants respect the principles, founding principles of America, And however you prove this, if you had a system, which is what Donald Trump wants to enact, a system where you can vet immigrants for these things, then I think by their very nature, for example, you have a lot of Vietnamese immigrants from a while ago who escaped communism around the Vietnam War before and after. They would be more inclined to vote Republican. Similar thing with Cuban immigrants who come from communist regimes. They would be inclined to vote more Republican because they have sort of that more deferential attitude towards America. And if you have a bunch of immigrants come in who are similar to that, or immigrants who just want to contribute for their family, they want to work for their family. If you had those kind of immigrants, which is what Mr. Watkins suggested might happen earlier, then I think the problem would be mitigated, absolutely, for the Republicans. But then you would have new problems come up. But to your question, that would be my answer.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. I'm kind of exploring some new thoughts with all this, and so if I'm scattered or if I'm coming across as overly picky, it's not my goal in this conversation. I'm honestly kind of filling this out as we go. But Pierce, you have any thoughts?
Yeah,
Brain's starting to hit that stage.
I think I had at least one more question. I may have lost it at this point. Like we were talking about immigrants and them holding the same values as Americans that Americans hold, and if you'd probably be okay with immigrants coming if they have those same values, and assuming that they have not coming in amounts that will not be beneficial to the country or have negative side effects that's in those types of quantities. I guess I was wondering why is that of such importance that immigrants have to have the same values. If they had a value that was a little bit different, what would be the significance of that?
That's a very good question, because it's the question that's been asked throughout, every immigration wave that America has had. And I'll simply answer it this way. This is my theory. This is not attributed to any other person or party or thinker. This is simply my answer to your question at this moment, which would be simply the purpose of of a country, or to put it more abstractly, the purpose of a society is to hold on to what has been given to them through their ancestors, but also create a better future for their children, for future generations. And so that respect for the old and love for the new has to always remain. And if you have people who have no history with the old, and on top of that have no affiliation towards the old at all, that chain breaks. And so you don't have a love for an America, whatever that means, anymore, because the people have no history with America. And alongside that, they have no love for the values that America has had. And so, for example, let's say you're a fan of a certain baseball team. I'm not really into sports. I'm kind of a nerd. But for those who are, let's say you're a fan of a certain baseball team. Your grandfather was a fan of that baseball team. Your father is a fan of that baseball team, and now your son is. You want that chain to continue. You want that sort of part of your identity to remain. And if that breaks, something is lost. And so that would be the main problem with those types, quote unquote, of immigrants coming in.
Okay, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. So, like, if I'm a Milwaukee Brewers fan, and my dad was a Milwaukee Brewers fan, and his dad was a Milwaukee Brewers fan, got this chain going on, and then I would want my daughter to also be a Milwaukee Brewers fan, and if she was a Chicago Cubs fan, that would like devastate me because it doesn't follow the like identity chain. Is that what I'm
Yes.
hearing? Okay. Why is
If
this identity so important?
Well, it's simply what makes a civilization, what makes a society. You know, we're not, if we are simply all individuals running around within a certain arbitrary space, like if America is simply just a zone of people with arbitrary borders, then there's no point really in having a country. But America, especially, but I'd say every country is not that. Every country has its unique face. Every country has its unique sort of mythology that it tells itself, mythology that it has of itself. And America, especially, is a country built on certain ideals, certain dreams, certain hopes, certain rights, and part of what has kept that alive through all these centuries is that people who are alive today have people in their families in the past that were alive when those values were held to more dearly, right? And so any country and any civilization needs to have its own sort of unifying identity, because if there is no unifying identity to build off of for a society to function, then we all become headless chickens running around not knowing where to go. And I think that's what people need, you know, more than the economic problems, more than even the immigration problems, more than the inflation, the foreign wars. People need to feel like they matter. And the only way for that to happen is if there is a shared identity within the country. And that can be something very basic, but it has to be shared, because we can't, you know, be separated and just all be individuals running around with our heads cut off, metaphorically.
Okay. We're probably going to wrap up the show soon because I think David's a little cooked. I'm a little cooked, but I have a question, and let me see what words I'm gonna use here. So, I think what I heard you say was, I'm trying to be as charitable as I possibly can be, and I think I'm getting it right. So, in this country, in the United States of America, we have needs to fulfill. We kind of want to take care of each other. We want what's best for ourselves. We want what's best for our kids. We want what's best for our neighbors. Everybody. We want us to be safe. Stuff like that. Take care of each other. And we have historically speaking, we've had kind of these strategies for accomplishing those things. We have a certain way of doing these things, of caring for each other, right? And if other people come into our country and they have different ideas of how to accomplish this, then those might not pan out, and we might not be as well taken care of. So that might be a potential like problem. Is that a good paraphrasing of what you've said?
Well, that's part of it, but I think what is being misunderstood on this issue fundamentally is we like to look at things by their consequences. So this thing is bad because it causes this. Whereas I think mass immigration, especially illegal, but in part legal as well, I think it's bad in and of itself for the reasons that I've spoken about earlier. And so I do agree with your characterization of my viewpoint, more or less, but I don't think it gets to the heart of what I've been talking about.
Okay. David, you got anything?
It's hard because there's our country and countries before that are built upon identities and cultures that existed in the place and then have been evolved into new things from outside sources. I mean, the classic, this was Native American land, yada yada yada. Before the Europe and all the expansions in that regard, it's like I think the point might be that the values that you are positing might be the most valuable is what I think you're hearing, because just preservation for preservation's sake just doesn't kind of work from what I understand, because it's to preserve what you're proposing here, we have to not preserve other things. So it's not just preservation for preservation's sake. It's because you think it's the most valuable. And you might have just said that, and my brain's just now loading. And I just want to iterate that I do believe in vetting and borders. I mean, I don't own my house. The government owns my house. It's giant private property of the giant businesses, the American economy. Like, if I don't pay my taxes, they take it back. Even though I've paid the bank, or I'm paying the bank. And so it's like private property, you gotta go within the rules of it. Like, I mean, it makes sense. I'm not against it. I was giving you a lot of pushback on various things, but that I do agree. I just want to let you know. I think it's hard because it's one of those things that's like, okay, unchecked, unregulated immigration can be a problem, and that people can come in and have different values, and that can clash. But the question is do the values that we've established set a strong enough precedence and law that could basically handle these kind of things? Like the hot button issue was on the news, the whole like eating cats and dogs kind of thing. I mean, there's like laws against that. So ultimately, like, if it's that scene, it's reported, that person, gets some kind of animal abuse fine or punishment in that regard. I mean, in theory, these kind of things, if they're happening, we should have laws that handle it. This is not like we have these people come in and they can just do whatever they want and they're just above the law. And if that is the case, that's obvious corruption. Let's deal with that on a localized level or federal level if there's laws that they can abuse. But that's the thing. It's like, I feel like all this talk about like, yeah, just like all these people coming in, they're corrupt and they're dangerous. Like, yeah, like just we have laws for corrupt and dangerous people. We have laws for people who who go against society, who do things that could harm other people. If we just make sure that the laws are upheld, I don't think there should be a fear about illegal people. This is just my personal opinion.
Well,
I get it's easier said than done, and then a lot of times it's more or less like you have to catch them in the act, and it's hard to prevent. Statistically, maybe it's going to happen more. Yada yada yada. Yeah.
I would simply say two very, very, very short things to that. Number one, yes, there are laws on the books. Absolutely. I mean, the most basic law is you have a border, and people aren't respecting it, so you need to, make them respect it, right? That's the most basic. But the problem is that law, as well as the laws you mentioned, are not being enforced, which is the main problem. That's number one. And number two is simply this. Every immigrant, legal or illegal, good or bad, whoever it is, every immigrant entered into the country is a choice by the government to allow in, right? It is a choice made. And the question needs to be asked, is that choice made on behalf of the country, of the American people that already live here? Or maybe, because I'm not against refugees, for example. Let's say someone wants to flee persecution and war. In those extreme circumstances, I would be open. But the question ought to be asked, because every immigrant is a choice by the government to allow in. Why? Is it for the benefit of the country, the economy, or the people themselves? The problem is we assume that millions just should come in legally and illegally because that's simply all we know, because that's simply all the political parties have allowed us to know. And Donald Trump is the only one in both Republican and Democrats circle. He's the only one who stands at least a little bit against it, and in my opinion, strongly against it.
Do we get to choose who's born? I mean, like Jeffrey Dahmer was born a natural born citizen. We didn't choose that person was born.
Of course,
brought into America.
We don't choose Jeffrey Dahmer to be born. He was born in America, but we choose to bring in foreign, maybe not as bad as Jeffrey Dahmer's, but people who do bad things. We choose to bring those people. And if we can minimize bringing bad people, why not do that?
Well, it goes back to the vetting thing, which we agree. But the specifics about how you vet somebody to figure out if they're a good person, that's hard. That's very difficult, and that's the
absolutely. But
we should have
you have to try, and the problem is the government doesn't try, and more insidiously than that, they don't want to try.
Can you summarize in like 2 or 3 sentences why you think what benefit they'd have having an unstable country in that regard?
An unstable country allows the people who have created the instability to, number one, brand themselves as the solution for more elections, and number two, create more instability for their own special interests, their own friends' businesses. It's a multitude of things, but ultimately it's about allowing themselves and their power to not be illegitimized, to not have the fingers pointed at them for the problems that they create.
Call that Camus guy back. I think we're talking about Marxist critique now.
Well, I'm not a Marxist. I just need to say that.
Yeah, I understand. I'm not either, but I do find some valid critiques, but in a similar way what you're saying of that the power uses the division in that regard, and the carrot and stick.
Well, that's part of it. It's not all of it, but it's part of it.
Well, we'll talk about the rest of it another time. I think Pierce, are we going to circle back around here, or are you done?
I mean, we can if you want to. I'd prefer to keep it brief, but yeah, we can.
All right, we'll give Level 1000 Vegan. He has his hand up again for a good bout here. We'll finish up with him, and we'll stop on that caller.
Okay.
Thanks for coming up there, Zonk Zebra.
Yeah, that was a great chat. Thank you for coming out. Appreciate it.
Hello, that was stressful to listen to. So I have a few questions before I start asking more questions. So I'm going to ask you guys some questions now, if that's okay.
Sure. Let's try to keep it like maybe.
It's all based on like American politics and the economy.
Okay.
Let's do it. Rapid fire. Let's go.
So wait, so just state your positions quickly, like what sort of like Democrat
sitting position.
Super cringe. Yeah. So you would like rather remain like in the shadow for this?
Well, I'm just literally sitting right now.
Okay, so what's your opinion on Trump?
He is a very rememberable character. He gathers a lot of momentum because he is a personality. He makes a lot of people feel like they are talked to more like a personal level,
like a stage person.
A stage person, yeah. He knows how to never play defense. He knows how to. He knows the game. He absolutely knows the game. I think he is just another wing of the same diseased bird. But I do think that he can. Okay. He's a businessman.
And what about you, Pierce?
Not particularly a fan. I don't think you were here at the very beginning of the show, but I said that I read his plan on the website, on his website, and
Okay.
he outlined getting rid of the Department of Education. And I had stated that I didn't think that was a good strategy for educating
Mhm.
the American public.
I see. Was the was the 2020 election stolen in your view?
Probably not.
Probably not.
I've kind of
Today,
lost
David?
my faith in the voting system.
Voting
I'll be
system?
completely honest. Yeah.
Hmm.
Like I think that by stolen you mean like it was unfairly
Like
unplanned and
forged, like
yeah,
forged
like
bull
I
crap,
mean if they could forge one thing,
like all like the crazy claims they make.
to me I see them all in the I don't think they're separate. I think they're like okay, I'm gonna have the long answer apparently. Like there's no world leader in the like no major country in the world that's going to let somebody whose alliances and policies are going to change so flippantly every 4 years. There's got to be a certain amount of consistency that is not dependent on such a flagrant switch that could happen every 4 years. That's 4 to 8 years. So to me, I think it's we're basically voting for a queen. But that's
I
just
see.
me.
Pierce, did you answer?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stance on workplace democracy.
Workplace democracy. I think people should have uh, a say in things in relation to their contribution. Weighted based on value source in a workplace.
Hmm.
I see. I see. So, like more specifically, like unions, co-ops, and like co-determinations. Are you in support of those things?
Oh, I'm a big. I think unions are great because it's like it's bargaining. It's putting more free market principles, in my opinion, to work.
Mm-hmm. Pierce, are you the same?
The only one term I'm even familiar with is unions, but yeah, unions
Okay.
are good.
Okay, that's fair. Kamala.
I don't think she stands a chance, not because she's a Democrat, but because she's not memeable. Like she doesn't have a good cadence in her voice that's like very easy to impersonate on Saturday Night Live. Like, like how are you going to make fun of her outside of her laugh? Like Trump, I mean, he's so parodiable. He's got
You live
the
in
meme
the
ability.
moment.
Maybe. I mean, it's just a theory, a game theory.
It's because she's a lawyer, isn't it? She's got that
Yeah,
What about
lawyer
you,
yeah.
Pierce?
voice.
She's
Do you
too
like Kamala?
poised.
I mean, she's
Do you
the
dislike her?
other option, the option that isn't going to get rid of the Department of Education. So yeah, let's go with her.
Trans people. I heard you talk briefly. You said some pretty cooked things about child puberty blockers and like what age people should be able to decide. I feel like the people you spoke to previously were being like extremely dishonest in their arguments. Children do not get reconstructive surgery. That does not happen. That does not happen. That does not happen. If you have any examples of it, show me. However, if we have a supposedly trans individual or a person with gender dysphoria, and you can either give them puberty blockers or run the major risk of them killing themselves, it's probably going to be the one that's going to minimize risk to harm ratio, right?
It's a false dichotomy in my opinion. Like I definitely
That's
want to
a false
mitigate
dichotomy.
suicide. I definitely like. I think it's like it's not just a either or choice. I think The things that
I mean,
in all the
kind of
studies
is.
I've read about puberty blockers and stuff like that, I can't find any studies that are specifically about that's specifically controlled with something that is specific to gender. Like it's always paired with, they have a better sense of community. They have a more sense of feeling like they can be honest with themselves. They have there's goal setting. There's a sense of accomplishment. There's things to look forward to. It's future thinking. Like I can't find anything specific, and I'd love to see it. Man, I would feel free anybody to send me because I'll read it. But
So
to me, I just don't think that it's specifically figured out. I mean, because I think all those things are present in the program, like not the whenever you set out to do that, you accompany it with those things, and I don't think it's isolated. So I don't know what's specific to gender that stops the suicide ideation. I think that's the suicide ideation it's from the dysphoria in a lot of ways, and from the feeling disconnected from the self, not feeling like they can be true, not feeling like they're accepted, and those things they're seeking to remedy that, and I think that is specifically putting hormones, or specifically putting doing something that is like a very capitalist gender expression, like, oh yeah, I'm going to wear different kinds of clothes now, and now I'm whole. I mean, I just don't think it's a 1-for-1. Like, I don't think that you can just say that. And I mean, maybe you say like, oh, you give somebody HRT and HRT helps people, or you give somebody testosterone helps, but that's not specifically gendered. Because I mean, both men and women have those things. It's just you're saying you need more of one of those things. That doesn't mean that it's specifically about gender. So sorry, there's my big thing there. Again, I don't care what people do or how they dress or act, or I think that comes down
can I
to,
just double check something with you?
please triple check.
If you have a child with like a horrible infection in the leg, their leg needs to be amputated or they're gonna die, do you amputate the leg?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have a child that has a horrific case of gender dysphoria, and the chances are that they're going to kill themselves, do you give them any form of gender affirming care?
So I mean, the infection you could pull out. You could take a needle. You could biopsy it. You could see. And
This is a
that
fucked
specifically is
leg.
the problem.
It's like rotten flesh.
Right.
It's
There's
fucked.
rotten
It's
flesh.
gone.
Yeah.
Right?
There are markers to say like this is specific what it is, but
Also, I'd like to get my friend
dysphoria-
up. Is that okay?
Pierce, did you hear that?
Sure, I guess. I mean, what do you think of it?
All right.
I mean, this is their position.
Let me finish my thought before I lose it.
Yeah, that's okay.
And-
Rotten leg, something about a needle. Are we taking the leg off?
Whereas
That's not a person. It's a
dysphoria
parent.
is a psychological situation, which it can be an awful one. Can be one that I can have absolute sympathy for. Something that I don't have. Like I don't feel like people don't feel bad. Like that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's made up. I'm just saying that can't be. You can't compare those 1-to-1. That's what I'm trying to say, because I mean the self ID
what's the argument?
It's different.
What's the argument that it's different?
Well, because you could biopsy the infection, you can see that this infection is here, 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 and here, and then you could chop off the leg and it's no longer there. Whereas the gender affirming care could be anything from just changing the way you talk to a certain person, some kind of hormones, some kind of different physical lifestyle kind of situation. But those aren't 1-to-1, like a direct fix for something that you can pinpoint. There's a possibility gender dysphoria could be misattributed. Like it could be something that you get what I'm saying? It's not a 1-to-1 in that regard. You can't say that. You couldn't say the same thing for depression either.
Sorry, I'm just writing this.
Pierce, I opened up a can of worms here at the end.
Yeah. What happened to the 6 minutes?
I don't know, Pierce.
Right.
They're all
Okay,
bit-
so I just don't see. Coco, you doing it?
What are you gonna say, Pierce?
Oh yeah,
was-
I invoked the amputee analogy because I just use that as like an opening statement to see their position on medical care for people under the age of 18. Obviously, they say, okay, if it's a life-saving operation, yes, they're going to do it. But however, if it's a life-saving operation or a life-saving procedure like gender-affirming care, they won't.
Well, yeah, the key word there is if it's a life-saving operation, or I mean, if it's a life-saving care. Like
okay,
that's what's up debate here.
change the variable to a certainty. Obviously, a certainty would be quite unrealistic or rare. I know and appreciate that, but there's nothing wrong with trying gender affirming care, and if it makes no difference, then you're going to look into other branches, aren't you?
Maybe we should back up. I should know what you mean by gender affirming care, just so because I don't want to misrepresent here. And
oh, you want a definition?
Yeah, when you're using it here, what are you meaning?
So when you affirm the identity of someone of whom they wish to identify as. So if I say I want to identify as, I don't know, a woman, you would say, okay, I'm gonna affirm that, and now I'm going to refer you to as like she, her pronouns. I'm gonna like address you as like what like sates you.
Okay.
You could also just defer to like standard of care, like whatever the standard practice is. So like hormone blockers, for like minors up to a certain point, then they do like regular hormone, like hormone replacement therapy, social transition, stuff like that. I'm just confused about the minors thing. Are we against giving antidepressant medication to minors as well, or is it just gender affirming care?
Ideally, I would be against it, but I can imagine.
Okay, so if it's the case that like I don't know, 25% of kids for whatever reason they're depressed, and the treatment that we know works with the evidence that we have right now is like antidepressant medication, and they're therapy resistant, we should not give it to them. We should just let them die. Why? What is the reason?
Wait, I don't understand. You just heard I said a caveat. Like I said, like I imagine there are scenarios, but I'd say ideally, I don't think it's a general solution.
What does that even?
We're talking about low numbers here, and I don't think we're disagreeing. We're talking about low numbers here. I just wanted to make sure
I'm making sure I'm on the same page. So if it's efficacious in the aggregate case, the other methods that we are aware of do not work, which would be analogous to the gender dysphoria case, because all of the other things that we've tried besides gender affirming care don't really have any evidence to support them. So I would just be curious what the alternative is. I think the analogy is pretty clear then.
But how do we know that? I mean, what specifically is the gender that change? I mean, what about gender is that changes? What is gender?
Is my mic working? But no, the question I asked was, if it's the case that we've already tried the other things in reference to treating gender dysphoria, why would we not just do gender affirming care unless we have reason to believe otherwise? That was the question.
I guess I was just wondering, like, how do we diagnose gender dysphoria?
Are you like asking what the diagnostic criterion is? It's something like 6 months incongruence with your assigned gender of birth. It's going to be like preference towards like secondary and primary sex characteristics of the opposite sex. It's going to be like those things.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an answer to the question I asked though? Like it
I
just
saw
seems
it. I'm
analogous to
trying
the
to think here.
depression scenario. Like in the depression case, if we are aware that the other things that we've already attempted don't have any evidence to support them, they don't work, and we have evidence to the contrary that like it causes like harm. It's like the alternative of gender affirming care, like, hey, you are assigned male at birth, be a male, you should do XYZ. Like we're aware of those things not working. We're aware of like just talk therapy not being sufficient. So if we're aware of these things being the case, I don't know why we wouldn't just
Wait,
do gender.
why should they do X, Y, Z if they're male? Why? I mean, I didn't say that.
Oh, okay. So then I will just ask the question again. What's the alternative to gender affirming care?
Self-determined social action. I mean,
Yeah, what is that?
I guess just them acting as though they want to be something different.
Oh, you're just
Like
saying
that.
like don't give them hormones. Yeah,
Basically.
I mean, yeah. So if you just want the evidence for them just doing that and not getting hormones, yeah, that's pretty bad. Yeah, we're just gonna have like higher rates of suicidality, higher rates of depression. Like for the stuff that we do have, we're just not doing anything. But then in addition to having hormone replacement therapy, the evidence for that is pretty strong.
I mean, but depression and things like that have more specific correlations. I mean, we know about how
they don't. The evidence, if you're about to bring up the brain scan studies, the brain scan studies for depression are pretty erroneous. I think like the replication for them is like 5 to 10%. I mean, it's about the same as the brain scan studies for gender dysphoria. I don't know why you'd point to that.
Well, that's exactly where I was going to go. But I mean, we do know that certain drugs affect certain areas of the brain specifically, whereas getting HRT or puberty blockers may specifically like block puberty, but that doesn't specifically like move anything that was on before. I mean,
so just to clarify this, for the neurology stuff, if your claim is that we have a good understanding of like the medications we apply in the neurology for depression medication, you'd just be mistaken. In the overall majority of cases, you're not looking at somebody's brain and actually seeing the specific function. You're actually just inferring. You're actually just making an inference. So it's I would say it's almost identical to gender affirming care.
And that's why I'm hesitant to give depression stuff to minors.
Oh yeah, just let them die.
I mean, it's not a 1-for-1.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the case that all of them are going to die. It's just going to be something like 25 X.
I'm trying to be respectful of people we're talking about here, and I mean, you guys, I don't want to deal with the kind of trolliness on this. I'm not trying to laugh at each other.
Not trying to troll you.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I don't think any laughter. Like, just to clarify this, I'm being dead serious, right? Like, just back to the depression analogy, right? I'm sure that there's some percentage of kids on antidepressant medication right now where if we took it away from them, they're not going to die. I'm sure there's some percentage, but I also think there's probably a pretty good percentage of those kids that will die. So I would like that number to be less than the number than if they weren't on antidepressant medication, but I don't know, maybe that's just me.
You know what? We don't have much time left here, but there's a little bit of confrontation going on, and I'd like to try to do a thought experiment to try to alleviate a little bit of this. And what I think would be beneficial, if you're comfortable, I would like you to try to steelman David's position and try to be as charitable as you possibly can be.
Oh, actually, I feel like that'd be pretty straightforward. Yeah. I'm worried about these like medications, these things that we're doing as far as gender affirming care goes, like HRT, stuff like that. It seems like we have more evidence in favor of like, I don't know, stuff like depression and stuff like that. It's not analogous to like physical ailments. I'm just a little bit worried about like, it seems like we have very limited evidence. We're not sure about the circumstances. It seems like it'd be better for people to just, I don't know, do some kind of social transition rather than do like hormones and stuff like that. That seems to be what I understand the position being.
Is that about right, David? Or is there anything missing?
It's somewhat. And like generally my ideal society would be a less gendered society at which there would be, guys can do whatever they want, girls can do whatever they want, just within reason of not hurting each other. But I guess what my simple oversimplified thing is that I feel as though it seems like the gender part is added on, is like using a lot of the gender affirming care is doing a lot of things that can come from other things, and I just don't understand why gender specifically is the answer. And so that's hard to roll down. I am pushed on the low because I got to get my kids ready for school in the morning. But per level 1000 vegan, I'll gladly talk to you guys on my channel on this another time. We can just do a sit down if you
that'd
like.
be awesome. Yeah, sorry if you picked up any, I don't know, like aggression. Like, we are like kind of like fast paced and aggressive on like debate topics like this.
I just kind of
But
felt like I was being
another
led
topic that I would love to
to
debate with you
answers
is
as
veganism.
opposed to being asked questions, if that makes sense.
Sorry?
I just kind of feel like
Can
I
you
was
just
being led to answers, like you were setting me up to get a dunk.
I mean,
as opposed
look,
to
I wasn't trying to lead you to an answer. I mean, you could have given the other answer. You could have said, look, I'm aware that if we take the antidepressants away from those kids, that some percentage of them will die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. You could have just gone full Shrek, right? I didn't stop you from doing that.
Well, I mean, that seems like a false dichotomy. I'm saying that I don't understand why gender is the line we draw at the very last thing that will help these people.
Yeah, I don't.
That's
so
what I'm saying.
generally, I mean, because we could just talk because it's about the gender characteristics, right? Generally speaking, when we say like primary, secondary sex characteristics, if that's not associated with gender, what is it associated with?
Sex.
Oh, okay. Well, then they can just replace gender with sex. Okay, problem resolved. What's the confusion?
I mean, a guy can. I mean, once you get primary and secondary sexual characteristics, I mean, why does that fix somebody? Like, I mean,
why does that fix them? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that, like, I mean, if I felt like I won't be whole unless I'll be a bodybuilder, like if I look like Dwayne the Rock Johnson, and I feel like
I
if I
feel
can't
that.
achieve that I'm not gonna uh, feel
Well,
like
I mean,
I
it
have
seems like
enough value.
yeah, I mean, there's going to be mitigating circumstances there. I mean, if there was like literally no issue with you becoming Dwayne the Rock Johnson, and that was like, generally speaking, as far as we are aware, the only evidence that we have would be for you becoming Dwayne the Rock Johnson. I don't know what the problem would be. The reason why that's going to be a bad case in the aggregate is because bodybuilding, especially to that extent, is not very good for you. Like bodybuilding, like, you know, like normal bodybuilding stuff is like fine, obviously. It's actually really healthy for you. But like trying to get like Dwayne the Rock Johnson, like that stuff's bad for you. And then also, it's usually when people have those preferences, those stated preferences, a lot of times it's not their own preferences. It's like I don't know, like some weird generalized societal expectation preference type thing. That's a little bit different than like secondary sex characteristics. Usually people have like, I don't know, long-standing like internal dialogue about that. So it doesn't really seem like it's going to be reducible to those cases. Unless you have some evidence to the contrary, then I would change my mind. I don't know.
I feel like we should both look up evidence on that, on those two dichotomies there. That sounds
Well, I mean, I've already seen the evidence for the gender affirming care stuff. I've asked people this before who say the contrary
specifically
position,
about
and I haven't seen it. I mean, like people usually bring up what is it, like BAD, like body dysmorphia and stuff like that. Like the evidence for that is pretty strong. That doing the things associated with the person's body dysmorphia does not result in like, I don't know, like positive mental health effects. Whereas that's not the case with gender affirming care. So I don't know. It just seems like there's a pretty clear symmetry breaker.
Sounds like we got a lot of stuff to talk about whenever we do chat. But I
I
do
guess
need to
I
head
can-
out.
Oh, by the way, the election was not stolen. Every single person in Trump staff and staff admin that looked into it all said the election was not stolen. Trump literally has said multiple times, including on TV, that he himself doesn't even think the election was stolen. Just want to get that out there. Oh, by the way, they also sent multiple fake electors. They sent 10 fake electors in Wisconsin. They forged the state seal. They literally made a
I'm so
fake
sorry.
state seal on a document. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah,
It was
sure,
lovely
sure.
talking to you guys. I hope to talk to you again next time.
Yeah.
Veganism, get ready.
Oh yeah, we've got a few talks on our channels if you want to watch.
I have been
On
watching them.
vegans.
I revised them whilst waiting to talk to you.
Oh, I love it. Appreciate you. Dice, die. What
Yeah,
does it
I'm
go by?
Die.
Die, yeah.
All right.
Okay,
Let's close
well,
this
Pierce
out.
and David, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good times, good times. Man, that would have been real fun to have at the very beginning. Full spedge, or
Yeah.
just a hope, like more time dedicated to it. Because
Yeah, there wasn't enough time to
do I
do that.
dive in? Do I bring this up because I'm going to bring up a new topic? Yada 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 yada.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, literally, we don't got time for it right now. But you should talk to him. You should totally do that. Go for it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sorry, Amber Lamps. And I think I saw another one up there. But we'll get you guys going on another one here.
Yeah, tell you what. On Monday, I'm doing an event with Eric, so just stop by then.
Yeah.
There we go.
Is that Skeptics and Scoundrels?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
Yeah, I like him. All right. Any final words, David? Because I'm cooked. I don't got any words. I just want to play that outro.
I love these kind of conversations because I'm trying to learn how to both be passionate but also in control, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Because I care about stuff, and a lot of times whenever I get passionate, it sounds like I'm like I get caught up in the back and forth as opposed to getting through the conversations, and I want to practice more, and it's pretty fun. So all that to say is this turned out to be a really fun show. I thought we had some really interesting conversations, and I feel like I talked most of the time, Pierce. We're going to have to get you some places to yap.
I'll have to get off the sideline every once in a while. I stepped in a little bit though, so.
You
Anyways,
did, and like you were filling the gaps perfectly. You were in the right place at the right time. So thanks everybody who watched. Thanks everybody who listened. Go check out our YouTube channels. Go hit subscribe. Go hit like. Go hit share, and then just post like, can you believe these idiots? These people are just awful. Watch these dumb, and then get some like big jerks to do hate reviews of us.
Rage bait.
Yeah,
rage bait. It's all about the rage bait.
Exactly. And somebody just be like, you can't believe these guys. We need that. That's how we can get this out to the world.
All right.
Don't forget to hit that bell.
And I'm cutting you off, David. I'm playing the outro. Wave goodbye to the people.
Bye.